I'm going to introduce you really quick. So Legion, this is Connor. He is a up and coming streamer. He does actually. What am I doing? Connor, introduce yourself to the Legion.
Yeah, so man, I'm not prepared to introduce myself. I've introduced myself too many times this week in all my different classes and everything. I am primarily a MFA student for creative writing at a school down here in Louisiana. Moved here from Houston. Um, so primarily student and writer. Writing is my primary focus, but along with that I read a lot of horror stories on No Sleep and books on various places on the internet. um, and so I've just been streaming myself reading different stories and kind of trying to shed some light on the underrated stories that I found in the community. So that's kind of how the stream
Yeah.
was born. um, and I don't really know what I'm doing streaming wise, right? I'm just kind of figuring things out as I go. But yeah, I just stream myself reading some stories, have some YouTube videos of me reading some stories and talking about writing. That's the two main things that I do.
All right.
So I'll go ahead and introduce you to my stream. If you
Oh,
don't know,
I'm honored.
anyone who's in my stream probably knows who you are already.
Fair point. Fair point.
This is Augustus Martis. He wrote the Bitterverse series. What am I doing? I need to let you introduce yourself.
Oh man, what a turnabout!
What a turn of events.
Hi guys. I'm gonna go through my list as well. Hello, my name is Augustus Mars. I am a Roman demigod, son of Mars. I am also the praetor of the First Legion, and I hunt monsters for a living. And whenever I have some free time, I like to write, share my world, and DM for my friends. I stream primarily Apex Legends, and I am getting into the literary world as an author. I have been published with my debut book being called The Bitter Question. The Bitter Question is a what I would describe as a mythic horror coming of age Greek tragedy. Connor, do you think that's pretty accurate?
I think that's very, very accurate.
Cool. Yeah. That's kind of what I've kind of whittled it down to. I think getting it any shorter than that would be a disservice to how many or how diverse these genres are for the book. Because the book really it's a horror book at its heart, but it's also a coming of age story, but it's also a Greek tragedy. So like, to trim it down any further than that would be a disservice. I do think that it is a book for any age past 13. I would prefer anyone reading it be older than 13. But besides that, I think it's something that a 40-year-old can enjoy or a 14-year-old can enjoy.
Yeah, and I think you nailed that in the plot of the book. It's not difficult to read. It's a very easy read, but it also tackles complex themes, which I think is the perfect kind of tactic to take with a book that's, for the age range of, we'll say, 14 to, 40, right? Where kind of anyone
Yeah.
can read it, where it's accessible if you're younger and you don't have a lot of life experiences. But if you're older, you might pick up on a little more like some of the philosophy that we were talking about a little bit ago,
the nuance of it.
and even the hints of actual philosophers and philosophy that are
Yeah.
throughout the novel.
I am a philosophy, like I love discussing philosophy with people. One of my favorite things to do with people that I've known for a while is to have a philosophical conversation and find out what their stands are. Like, are they utilitarians? Are they individualist? And then like drill them on like why they have those stances and like dive into, because a lot of people think that they're one thing until they have to defend and understand what that actually is, and then they're like, oh well, my views are actually a lot more complex than I originally thought.
Yeah, that's really cool. Why don't you tell everyone kind of your history with writing before you got to the point where you wrote that novel? Like, how long have you been writing? How did you get started writing? That kind of thing.
So that's one thing, like specifically in your Discord, people have been like, oh, you're so talented and all this other stuff, and I'm like, Yeah, but I've been doing it for literally longer than most of you have been alive. So like, take that with a grain of salt. I have been writing since I was 12, so for 26 years at this point. I have had the dream of being a published author for literally two-thirds of my life. I will say that it is a matter of my big hellhound is having a little bark. I don't know if you guys are picking it up on that. But I have I've been writing for 26 years. I primarily wrote within the sci-fi and fantasy frameworks, and doing a lot of, because I have told many people, including yourself, I am a world builder first and a character writer second. Right. I think that building a believable world is the most important part of any story. Because to me, unless you have a world that feels real, you can't have characters that have lived in that world, right? And nothing will connect a reader to a character more than having that character feel like they've had lived experiences, right? That being said, that's not everyone's opinion. But that world building all comes from, like, I have a history as a DM for Dungeons and Dragons. Like, I do that like for my friends. Like, I've been considered a quote unquote forever DM for a long time. And so like that world building is like built into me. And that's why I predominantly wrote within the sci-fi and fantasy space. And then I was inspired by Creepcast. Thank you, Panda. Panda's played with me before.
Cool.
So, I was inspired by Creepcast. I have never been one to partake in creepypastas, but I was inspired to write a creepypasta, and that's where the Caver Gang stories started out. And once I got done with that initial telling of the story, I decided this is a novel. There's no reason not to novelize this. And so that's what I did. I novelized it. And after my first book, Asset Cronus, I had been pitching it to, I think at last count, I was like over 54 agents I had pitched Asset Cronus to, with no success. I found a publisher willing to give me a chance with the Bitter Question, and so now I can officially say, yeah, I'm a published author, and that's a dream come true.
Cool, man. So what was that that process like of finding the publisher? I don't think we're going to talk about this too much because I don't think
No, it's okay.
we're not necessarily the audience for going deep into the publishing industry. But what was the process like for actually like finding that publisher? Because I know typically they don't accept unsolicited manuscript requests without an agent.
So that's actually 100% accurate. And the only reason I got a publisher without an agent is because it is a publishing house called Echoes of Service. And they specifically work to get service members published. And James is his name. James is doing God's work out there, is how I put it. He is doing his best to get, service members, first responders, and their families published, so that once they are published, that is the first big insurmountable part. That once you are published, it's one of those things. It's so much easier to find a job if you have a job, right? Yeah. And being published means that going to, and it's like, hey, I am published. Here's my published work. Will you please represent me or something? It becomes so much easier. Now, that being said, I haven't looked for an agent after being published. And I don't plan on right now, because James is essentially acting as my agent and publisher right now. And I think that if I ever decide to go to a different publisher, he will remain my agent, acting as my agent while I swap publishers, because he actually offers services as an agent and a publisher both.
Interesting. Wow, that's a really interesting story. I've never heard of that kind of process, but I'm so glad you were able to find someone
Yeah.
to help you with that, because I'm glad we have the book. It really is worth reading for anyone who hasn't checked it out yet. And what I would
Thank you.
say is, I'm not gonna tell people in the chat like go buy this book necessarily, but what I would say is go read Augustus's
The
stuff on
synopsis.
Reddit. Yeah, go read the
Yeah.
synopsis, listen to him talk about it, read his stories on Reddit. And then if that compels you to, want to read more and want to buy the book, it's out there. And I can vouch that it's a great story. I think it's something that could be hard to place in traditional publishing, which is probably why, not in the sense that it can be hard to prove the market value of a book like that to
Yeah.
agents. But I think now that it's out there, I think there's fans for it. And I think like the people in the Creepcast community are the types of people that would be fans of that book.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
And I think the publishing industry is going to catch up over time. And I think
Mhm.
that they'll get more eyes on it, whether it's this book or a future book you publish. I think there's going to be more opportunities to get more eyes on stuff, because I think right now it's criminally underrated. And Yeah, I'm glad it found its home finally.
I will say that, like, as a writer and an author, like the part to me that's more important than like selling, like making, hands over fist money,
Yeah.
it's telling a story and getting my story out there, right? That's the most important part. Like, I am a storyteller first and foremost, and so if I can get, more people to enjoy my stories and come back for more stories, that's feeding a part of my soul that, like, I'm not getting fed anywhere else. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
So yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so we know you were already writing before you stepped into the kind of Creepcast community, and got started on this series. But I know Creepcast had, like you said a moment ago, a big influence on getting you started. I think this is a good kind of segue to maybe reading the foreword of the novel. Do you want to go ahead and do that?
Yeah, absolutely. And I love the name Poop Goblin the Hungry. What a
Yeah,
name.
welcome to the stream,
Uh,
Poop Goblin. Nice to see you.
all right. Do you want to swap over to the
Yeah, I'm
PDF
getting
so
that
people,
open
yeah.
right now.
All right. So this is going to be the author's forward. It's already up on my stream, so
I got it
it's
up.
going to be the author's forward that is going to be, if you buy my book, this will be at the very beginning of the book. This is the first pages. And I want, if you guys listen to me read this, if you buy my book in the future, I want you to understand how sincere these words are. So here we go. Uh, author's forward. I'm still blinking at the screen, half expecting someone to lean over my shoulder and say, "Nice mock up. Now, where's the real book?" Yet here we are. My first novel has been loosed into the wild. I have been chasing stories since I was 12, filling spiral bound notebooks under the mattress and sneaking fan fiction into classroom computers. But I never imagined that getting published would actually happen one day. Those early pages were thin reflections of whatever worlds I had just inhaled. When I first picked up The Lightning Thief by Rick Riordan, it showed me that mythology could wear sneakers and crack jokes. Patrick Rothfuss proved to me that prose could sing without losing its bite, and so much so that his words are tattooed up on my shoulder. True story. I do have a tattoo from the Kingkiller Chronicles on my shoulder.
Beautiful.
Brandon Sanderson, with his clockwork magic systems, handed me the blueprints for building a universe that actually holds together and runs smoothly. Their shelves became my syllabus, their craft, the penmanship, or permission slip I needed to try harder to become the best writer I could be. I can only dream that one day they may read this and know how much their works have inspired me. Life, being far less tidy than the 3X structure, swept me out to sea. I enlisted in the U.S. Navy and traded lore and world building for nuclear reactors and sea trials. Shipboard nights were loud and endless, but I never had trouble imagining new stories when underway. When a medical discharge sent me home sooner than I planned, life demanded many things, and writing had to take even more of a backseat. If you are reading this forward, you are about to step into a world where memory is currency, divinity decays, and a single whispered choice can splinter a life. I cannot promise safe passage. My narrator has pried up the floorboards best left unbothered. I can promise honesty. Every page carries fingerprints from the kid who wrote terrible Dragon Ball Z fan fictions on his old PC, the sailor who learned that storms can be calmer than the home during shore leave, and the veteran piecing together what comes after duty ends and your body has betrayed you. As for the story of this story, it began after my 4th back surgery. I had a moment of clarity while I was laid up on my couch, buzzing with painkillers and listening to the newest episode of Creepcast covering the story Tales from the Gas Station. The bitter verse began to bubble up on that blank white, sedative-laced afternoon. So my first thanks goes out to Saya Markin and Hunter Hancock, the hosts of Creepcast. Thank you so much for inspiring me down this path. And to all the loyal creeps out there who spent late nights wondering if they should finally write something, in the immortal words of Shia LaBeouf, just do it! The earliest version of this story surfaced on r/Deep Night Society, a corner of Reddit lit by the flashlight glares of horror seekers. Each of their beams highlight a tale from a struggling author that is trying to make their way in the sea of nightmare-induced tales. If you enjoy this book and are eagerly awaiting for the next, consider checking them out. So, I dug down into the soil of my imagination, pulled up a nugget of a story, took a deep breath, and tossed it into those dark depths. I was certain it would sink to the bottom and be forgotten. But instead, readers hauled it up and looked at it closer than I could have hoped. They were excited by the potential in that ore and asked for more pieces. For a whole story forged of its metal. And just for them, I mined out more of that raw material and found the elements that would soon become the bitter question. For that, I owe thanks to r/Deep Night Society and all its readers. Once I had all the ore I could find, I melted it all down and made it into a dull ingot of a novel. It was only with the help of my alpha and beta readers who kept the forge hot that I was able to make that lackluster chunk of a tale. Thank you all so much. I would never have gotten this far without your excitement. The bitter question truly took on color when @Samstalgia dropped a piece of fan art. Seeing my characters rendered by another hand felt like meeting them for the first time. Sam's art graced the original ebook's cover, and their enthusiasm reminded me that stories are more like invitations into a world than they are declarations of what's in that world. Thank you so much, Sam. Your talents are so much more precious than you realize. I self-published that story with little hope of it ever gaining traction. But someone took interest in it and wanted to sell that story to a wider audience. So I polished that chunk of processed narrative into the story you now hold. For that, I owe James Hedinger a good bottle of his favorite spirits and a heartfelt thank you. You truly made a lifelong dream come true. But there are a few others that I also owe direct thanks to. First is Chris Egbert. He endured countless games of Apex Legends while I refused to shut up about this story. And yet he was also excited for every part of the story being dropped on Reddit. And for that, I am thankful. To Anthony Dubé-Leblanc, you disgusting Frenchman, thank you for always helping me world build and bounce ideas off of you. I know you will help more than anyone else as I craft more of the Bitterverse in the future. You really are the best friend a writer could ask for.
Beautiful. Beautiful. I hope you know I clapped a little bit when you said Anthony Dubé-Leblanc. That was beautiful, beautiful. I wanna first say that's a beautiful love letter to the community. I think it's inspiring for.
Oh, bro, I still got 2 paragraphs left.
Oh my God. I'm so
There's
sorry.
No, it's okay. I was like, I realized because that did sound like the end. But hold on.
I'm
Lastly,
not
but
done yet.
definitely not least, is Travis Kuhlman. I am often the mentor or wizened friend for those young writers around me seeking guidance. Travis is the one writer friend that I felt comfortable to lean on when I doubted myself and needed reassurance. As I often say, what a homie, and boy, what a homie he is. Thanks, man. But most of all, thank you, dear reader. Thank you for trusting me with a sliver of your time. Remember, sometimes the cost of an answer is more than the coin you pay for it. And may the bitter verse echo in your mind long after you turn the final page. Augustus Martis, October 2025.
Beautiful,
Sorry, go
beautiful.
ahead. Now I'm done.
Man, I forgot what I was gonna say. I think that's super inspiring for anyone who wants to publish a book, to see that even if your life takes you in all kinds of directions, like joining the military and maybe at some points writing being the furthest thing from your mind, even if you're still world building in your head, to be able to come back to it, and complete something, and you're very young. It's almost it. There's two sides of the coin, no pun intended, um, where so much happened in your life. It feels like, where you started with writing, then came back to it, but also simultaneously, you're actually relatively young for a first time author, right? I feel like the average age
Yeah,
to get a book published is, you might be in the average range, but you're
I'm about the average range.
yeah, but people think, I would say, like, for people in their like 20s right now who are like, man, like I was planning on writing a book, I haven't published one yet. You're pretty much at an average age if you're around 35. Like a lot of people don't get their
Yeah.
first book published till they're 50,
So
60.
yeah,
It's
that's one
difficult.
of the interesting things is that like it's baked into kind of the internet culture and the feelings of like demand, like having what's demanded of you. A lot of people don't realize like most English professors don't have published work, right? They don't have like published novels. They might have like published papers, but a lot of them don't have published works, but they are still great like writers. And just because you don't have something published doesn't mean you're not a great writer. Keep trying, and eventually you will have something that someone is willing to give a chance.
Yeah. And did you ever like completely stop writing for multiple years at a time, or were you pretty
Um,
consistent with it
yeah,
across,
yeah,
since you
no,
started when you were 12?
there were good chunks of time where like I never stopped imagining. I never stopped thinking of worlds and stuff like that. Um, the biggest problem came with like I there were situations in my life where I just could not afford the thought, the mental strain of writing. While I was in the nuclear program and in the Navy, I was I didn't write because I just didn't have the time and the energy for it. Whenever I was in the Navy, I was underway, and I did like there are people who write underway. I was not one of those people lucky enough to have enough of mental space to do that. So yeah, I would say that like there's pauses in everyone's ability to write sometimes.
Yeah. And speaking of like your time in the military, did
Mhm.
that impact you as a writer at all? Do you think it helped you grow as a
Oh,
writer?
absolutely. Yeah.
Can you talk about that?
Sure. So the thing is that like um, it's not so apparent in the bitter question, as that is a book about teenagers, and like that's not really somewhere I would have, felt right including my military service, like inputs. But my the first novel I wrote, the Project Cronus, or Asset Cronus, sorry, Asset Cronus, does carry a lot of DNA from that military service, and understanding like how the world works from a service member's point of view, and understanding like you know the political stages of like conflict and stuff like that, which also plays a lot into my world building, also. Um, but also like you meet so many interesting people while you serve, right? On my submarine, I had people from, all across the United States. I had people who grew up as first generation where they're like their parents were Kenyan. Both of their parents were Kenyan, so they had like the thickest Kenyan accent you
Yeah.
can imagine, like to the point it was almost hard to understand them sometimes. But they lived in America their entire lives, you
Mhm.
know, and so like you meet these interesting characters like that, and then later, whenever you're writing, it bubbles up, and you're like, oh, that would make an interesting character. I'm going to write about someone who's like that.
Yeah, yeah, I
So.
think that's something that I think beginner writers struggle with the most, specifically younger authors, maybe not necessarily beginners, is that it takes a lot of life experience to be a great writer, in my opinion. You can do all the reading and all the studying, but that's not going to teach you how to write a compelling character. It can, but it can feel cardboard if you don't have the experiences to
Lived
back it
experience.
up.
Yep.
Yeah, and so I would say to anyone who's trying to become a better writer, to obviously study hard, read, write a lot, but don't be afraid to go out there and live life. Right, like go do
You meet people.
exciting
Yeah.
things and meet people, yeah, and talk to people. And when you're out, listen to people. And speaking of that, I think for me, the part of the better question that I enjoyed the most was actually the characters, and
Yeah.
the friend group, the Caver Gang. Were any of those characters inspired by people you've met?
Yeah. Yeah.
Where does
Absolutely.
that influence come from, or what is the influence?
So the thing is that I put all of my friends from my like teen years of my childhood into a blender and like smoothed them and then poured them out into new molds. So there are characteristics where like a hair color was swapped from one character to another,
Mhm.
or I talked about like a specific event that occurred to me, like that happened to me, but I changed who was present for that, and just by swapping out those like actors, so to speak, it changed how those events played out. There is a location referred to in the book called Shit Creek,
Yeah.
right? Shit Creek is a real place. Then, like talking about it being the you know diverged like creek used for a sanitation,
Mhm.
that's the real thing that is like in my hometown, like where I come from. And like, yeah, I have memories of going with my brother and like being around a bunch of like 17, 18-year olds who were smoking pot and drinking Jack Daniels and being rowdy. And I was 13 at the time,
Yeah.
13, 14. So like I wasn't part of that group, but I had that experience of being around that. So like, there are characters in there, because again, tying this back to the characters, there are characters where like my friend group never were the ones to go out and smoke pot or to go drinking and stuff like that. That wasn't us, but like I knew people like that, so I was able to write earnestly about that. And one of the biggest compliments I had in regards to the book is that there is a late late book character self-destruction cycle occurring. I don't want to give away too many
Yeah.
specifics, but the character starts making really bad decisions over and over and over.
Yeah.
And someone who has lived through that told me how earnest and real that felt, like as like someone who has lived through that, like through that kind of chain of bad decision making. And so like, yeah, no, this is like how you describe it and why people do it. That's perfect. You describe it 100% perfectly. And that's one of the biggest compliments I could ever get as a writer.
Yeah, and I think that's
So,
what resonates with people the most in my experience from any type of literature is characters that they can relate to, or
mhm.
characters that they at least understand in some sense or want to understand. And I think that's really, really nailed in the book. The way that we love Will, but we also hate Will because he's so similar to sometimes us at our best, but other times us at our worst. And
Yeah.
we can't blame him for anything he does, but we still
Mhm.
blame him for the things that he does. And that's a beautiful kind of dichotomy that's in the book and present in all the characters, really. Do you have a favorite character from the book? And that might be hard to say if
Um,
they're based on people, at least partially based on people you know.
so the thing is that like so Will is not like a self-insert
Mhm.
for me. but Will is based around a lot of the stuff and a lot of the decisions I made as a teenager. Um, that's why I hate him the most. Uh, yeah, you thought I was gonna say he's my favorite. No, I fucking hate Will. I see all of the bad decisions I made in life, and Will is like the one that has to carry that cross. I would say Theo. I say Theo is probably my favorite character. In a like as far as like he is the silent protector. He's the guardian. He bears like he feels like it's his responsibility to keep everyone together. Which I did it on purpose where I set out for Alan to feel like that character, and then all of a sudden as time goes on, he just kind of like nosedives and takes a back seat. There's a reason for that. And like when you read Alan's Three Coins chapter, you realize, oh, that's why he went from this to this. And like I wanted Theo to feel like the stone, right? Because you meet Theo after his revolution already occurred.
Yeah.
Right? His pivot already occurred and he didn't break. He kind of strengthened himself from that, which is almost the exact opposite from what happened to Will.
Yeah, I think honestly, if you asked Will, I think he would also say that Theo is his favorite character. You can see they have an incredible friendship.
Bromance.
I think, yeah, absolutely. The kind of friendship that I think everyone wants to have, and hopefully they do have.
I will tell you right now that part of the character smoothie for Theo, the person who that came from, his wife was in chat earlier. That comes from a real person, and that is one of those things where like you have to have that lived experience. Yeah. And Theo is like that friend for me, because like the person who was in my life was that friend for me. So
cool. So I have some questions about kind of the mythos of the world.
Yeah, absolutely.
So without giving away too much for people that haven't read the book yet, how did you come up with the coins?
Oh, there she is.
The 3 coins, the 3 coins and the 5 coins. Where did that come from? Is that a actual like Greek mythology?
No, that's completely original. The 3 coins was the original. Like I had just literally thought to myself like, oh, what's something that sounds just kind of like a myth, like something that you would hear in like a Greek tragedy, and like it came to me like, oh, like if you carry 3 coins to a prophet, they'll give you, your future, but it'll cost you 5 coins to change that future. And like that kind of spiraled out and became the poem that I wrote for the first and second parts of the first book. But it was originally for a coin, and then for 3 coins was the original. But as I kind of stewed with the idea, I came up with the concept of the 3 deaths, and that's where I was like, oh, I want the 3 coins and then the 5 coins to be different. So the 3 coins is something that you're not familiar with quite yet at the end of book 1. You get a tease of it in the flash forward. But 3 deaths is something that's like integral to the world building that you'll find out more.
People who aren't familiar, the 3 deaths is the death of breathing, and you can jump in when I get it wrong. Death of breathing, death of memory, and death of name and death of memory.
Yeah, right? So you're close. It's the death of breath. Death of breath, the death of name, and then the death of now not action. Oh, what's the word? Oh no, this is my universe. I'm supposed to know these things. Ah,
I have
hold
the
on a second.
book right here, but it's on the other side of my room. Otherwise, I would grab it.
Uh,
Um,
so so the concept actually is one that like I kind of came up with, but the three stages are death of breath is where it's the last time you take a breath,
mhm.
right? When you exhale your final breath, that is the breath of the death of breath, right? And that idea is that like, whenever you die and pass on, um, it is, it is a death, right? It is not the final death. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So, um, the death of name is the last time that your name is spoken in not just like randomly spoken,
Yes.
spoken
Yeah.
with intent. The last time that someone says your name, like it could be at your funeral, it could be like there are situations where someone could say your name for the last time before your first death. You can suffer the second death before the first death, right?
Or you
If you're
can.
living a very lonely life, if you're a forgotten
Yeah.
person, it can happen. But the death of action, or yeah, it's the death of memory, um, is when the last time that something you did impacted the world, right? So if you think of it as you built a building, right?
Yeah.
That final death is when that building has crumbled and is no longer there, right?
Mhm.
Even the things that you did in the world have died and passed on, right? And that's the longest and hardest death because no matter how small your life is, it impacts the world in some way, and that is the longest that you will live. So those are the three deaths that the Bitterverse are built on. And so once I came up with the idea of the three deaths, I changed it to 3 coins and 5 coins.
Interesting. Wow. I just heard my I'm so sorry to change the
No,
topic for
they're
a
good.
second. I just heard my either a donation alert or some kind of alert with my yippee sound. So I'm sorry to whoever, if someone donated or something along those lines and I didn't see it, I'm so sorry. Um, it did not pop up on the screen. But if you did, identify yourself so I can thank you. I appreciate whatever that was. But yeah, I think man, there are questions I want to ask, but I'm
Uh,
not going to right now because it is a little bit of a spoiler towards the ending. But I will say the ending of the book really got me, and it made me excited for the next one. So just be aware, guys,
oh,
if you
okay.
read, it's ending on something related to the three deaths. That's very interesting, and I think we'll get answers to what exactly that means in the next book. Um,
You will.
that being said, what is kind of the timeline for us getting the second novel?
So the plan was originally to have the second novel out around March. It is probably not going to happen in March. It's probably going to be closer to June whenever the Bitter Remains launches. And then we're looking at probably September, October for the Bitter Disclosure, which is going to be the third book, but the first book of what's called the Mueller family dramas.
Interesting. That's really exciting, I think, for anyone who is, of course, a fan of the series thus far. I am curious, and I would not be surprised, or I think you might have even mentioned that other people have made this connection before. Um, is the book in any way, at any point, or any relationships inspired by Baraska in any way? because I think
Um,
it obviously goes in
no,
a completely different direction. It's nothing close to, it's nothing even in the same world as Baraska. Completely two separate world, like could not be more opposite worlds.
story, yeah.
But I think the friend group at the beginning, the carving their names, things of that nature. Was any of that in any way inspired by Baraska,
No,
or is that just out of left
actually,
field?
no. So actually, that actually came from something in my childhood. So there was a so in the story, Will moves straight to this new house, right?
Hmm.
But in real life, we like my family built a house and we lived in like a mobile home waiting for the house to be built, right?
Yeah.
We rented a mobile home. We stayed there for like 9 months or something like that while we're waiting for the house to be built. So like I moved into the new house about 9 months after my big life changing move. It wasn't like immediate, right?
Yeah.
Um, while I was living in that mobile home, there was like three kids, and to this day I don't remember their names, but they took me out exploring because there was like woods that like were out behind the like where we were renting that mobile home, and they took me out, and there was a like a fallen over tree, and they had already like carved their names into it, right?
Hmm.
And so they were like, "Oh, do you want to carve?" It wasn't like I had to. They asked me if I wanted to,
Yeah. Yeah.
and I was like, "Yeah, cool." And so I carved my name into that tree trunk. And when Baraska, whenever they like, whenever I heard Creepcast, because I've never read Baraska, I've only heard it through Creepcast, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And whenever they were talking about the tree, I was like, "Oh, okay." Like, so that's like a shared experience that a lot of kids who lived in like, Appalachia, like, because that's where I was raised, was
Uh-huh.
in Appalachia, and so I was like, oh, so that's just like shit that happens around like those things.
That's
And
funny.
then
Yeah.
like as I thought about it, I had okay, so oh, it goes into a spoiler kind of. Did you pick up on Alan didn't remember um how he knew about the location of
So when that happened, well, are we speaking of the location, or are we talking about he didn't remember the person who led him to it? Is that
he
what you were
didn't
speaking
remember
about?
being led there?
Yes.
He said, I don't remember being led there.
So my understanding was that, well, my understanding was that we're not meant to have the answer to that yet, but that it
Well,
was
so
some sort of
it's a hint.
foreshadowing.
It's a hint that by carving your name into the rock is tied to that.
Okay.
And that's where the whole rock and the caver gang idea kind of spiraled into. So as far as like I wasn't like I never took anything from Baraska because like I said I never read it. I listened to it, and I think Baraska is great. 1 through 4 specifically. Not a big
We
fan
won't
of
talk about
5.
5. We won't even talk about it.
Yeah,
And my
I think that's
yeah.
like I think that's the kind of the common consensus, right? But I would say, do you remember the opening scene of the Deep Woods?
Um
Also by her. It's by the same author.
I need to reread that. I've read it. I don't remember the opening scene specifically.
Well, it's whenever it was by the same author.
Mhm.
I would say that was more of a inspiration for like the because like a okay, so them playing football at the very beginning in
Yeah.
chapter 1.
Yeah.
That's how I met the kids in my neighborhood, right?
Yeah. And that's a
Like I literally
common
that's
experience, I think. Yeah.
yeah, and so like I can't claim that, like that's just lived experience, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But like how it spiraled into like one kid wanted to kind of like, oh hey, you should come be part of this, right? That was more along the lines of like trying to capture that feeling of like, oh, there's something because I wanted that initial hook of like, oh, there's something more going on behind the scenes of this like, friend group. And
Yeah.
so I wanted to kind of like push the reader into that
Oh,
mentality
absolutely.
of
And that's such like an
yeah,
incredible opening for any story, which I think is why we see it done in different ways, but a relatively common thing. Like, of course, Barasco was not the first to do it, right?
no, it's the
And
mystery box kind
yeah,
of like thing. Yeah,
yeah, and just kind of that feeling that like it's kids, but they are into something that's mysterious, and
making bad
we
decisions.
yeah, and we want to know more about it just as bad as the main character of the story does. So we know
Yeah,
why, we understand why they fall into these things, even if we as adults might question it a little more. I do want to ask, because there's some, and don't spoil anything, of course, if this
yeah.
goes into spoiler territory, but I think that there is some indication that the Caver Gang has existed since, what was it, the 1880s or something?
1880s was the earliest date that was called out in the book. Yeah.
Yeah, so what exactly is the Caver Gang? How has it lasted for so many generations? Is the backstory for that fully fleshed out in your head as far as how the Caver Gang existed?
Yes.
How has it been able to continue for so long without falling out? Because I think a lot of times, if it, an organization that's essentially run mostly by kids, how do they how are they able to keep passing it on for over a
You're
hundred
asking
years?
all the right questions right now, and I'm
Mhm.
not going to answer any of them.
Okay, but they're questions that could be
You
or
should
will
have.
be
Yes.
answered
Yes,
as
they
we
okay,
progress.
so to clarify, they will be answered specifically in book 4.
Okay,
In Alan's book, because Alan is book 4. So book 2 is Alicia, book 3 is Shannon, book
mhm.
4 is Alan, and book 5 is Theo. Those will be answered in Alan's book.
Cool. I'm excited for that because I was really hoping you'd be able to give me the the answers to that
I will
today.
say that
Uh,
1880 was not the earliest. That's the earliest one that was called out in there. That is not when the rock was uh became relevant, I will say.
okay, so I'll ask this, and again, feel free not to answer, but you don't need me to tell you that. Um,
Mm.
is it something, whether it's the Oracle or something else, supernatural, that's ensuring that the
I will
club
not
never
answer that
ends?
question right now.
Okay,
I will not answer that question right now.
so there's some. I'm going to guess. You don't have to answer. You can keep your mouth shut. Um, I'm going. My hypothesis is that there is
Mhm.
some entity that does not want the Caver Gang to disperse or ever end.
So I will say that you are on the right path, but I will also say that so this is a bit of a spoiler. Do you know what? Not really a spoiler. This is a bit of a learning opportunity. Do you know what an oracle is?
Um, I mean, essentially yes, but I don't know the whole history of an
No, no.
oracle and how they.
So what is an oracle?
Well, my understanding of an oracle is a entity that has some, key insights into, the future, the present,
So
the past.
that's the common misconception. That's what people think it means. The actual meaning of an oracle is a location. It is where prophets tell their prophecies, right? So the Oracle of Delphi, which is the most famous example of an oracle,
Mhm.
wasn't a person. The Oracle of Delphi was a cave where the prophecy, the not prophecies, prophetesses, like the female prophets, would receive their visions from Apollo and then come out of the cave and tell the world. Later, Travis. Thank you for coming in, man.
Yeah, thank you so much, Travis.
Um,
Hope you have a good rest of your night.
yeah, that's everyone. That's Imperial. That is Travis. He's the one that was called out in the actually still on Connor's screen right now at the top of the page.
Yeah, one of the
So
great creepypasta writers of our time.
he is literally the like. It is wild how prolific that man is. I did not know how many stories he had posted until he showed me his creepypasta.com or his wiki, creepypasta wiki thing. I was like, my God, dude. Anyways, so I will relate to you that them calling the being inside the oracle is wrong.
Interesting. Okay.
I will say that the cave entrance that they go into is not the only entrance to the oracle.
Interesting. Okay. So that I would imagine that would have to be relevant to the other groups of kids who are a part of the Caver gang. Correct?
It absolutely is.
Okay.
Yep. There being multiple pockets of these, because like I introduced that concept of like Aiden coming from a different group of Caver gang on purpose. There was a reason for me to introduce that.
Okay. That's interesting. So while we're on the topic of these kind of entities or locations, as it may be, and I'm probably going to butcher these names.
It's fine. I screw up my own names too.
Well, what is the Dijin? Dijinn?
The Jin?
Dijin? Can you
Yeah.
explain to us a little bit what that is?
So you know genies, right? That's where genies come from. Jinn are wind and flame spirits in Arabian myths. So they typically are malicious. They only grant wishes if they are captured, and they try to make those wishes as maliciously compliant as possible.
Okay.
Now, of course, if you know the genie from like Aladdin, it's very Disney-fied. It is not how a jinn actually acts. There is a good representation of jinns in the Witcher series, if you've read the Witcher series. But it's a different form of it's the original form of genies.
So essentially the explanation that I forget which character or how it comes up, the explanation that we get in the book itself is accurate.
It is in a way. It is carrying kind of double duty there. I used that example one to make sure that it kind of comes into to plant the seed in the reader's mind that not all the myths in the Bitterverse are going to be coming from Greco-Roman mythology. That is one thing, but also to give a pop culture reference that is not inaccessible, but still obscure enough that it would feel foreign and alien to the reader.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And then what about the Firus? If I'm saying that right, and how do those relate to the universe?
Yeah. So you're pulling that from the epilogue, my friend, or from the sneak peek. The Firus are the Bitterverse version of the Furies. Mm-hmm. So in Greek mythology and Roman mythology, this is one where the Romans just wholesale stole the Furies. It wasn't just in Greek. But the Furies were a set of 3 spirits that each carried a specific form of vengeance. They were not children of Nemesis, but they worked hand in hand with Nemesis. Okay. Typically, Nemesis would be the one to judge someone's transgressions against the Olympians, and then send out the Furies to enact the punishment on the mortals.
Interesting.
Right?
Okay.
So the Firus are you will see as we go along, and this is in itself them calling this thing the Oracle is another they don't understand that that's not what this thing's real name is. Because you will in the 4th book you will find out what its real name is and what it wants, right?
Okay.
So like, the Oracle is going to be a character that I don't want to spoil anything, but essentially knocked over the first domino on purpose because they knew where that domino would lead. If you have a malicious being that is all knowing and knows exactly the words, and this comes from Patrick Rothfuss, by the way. If you've never read The Name of the Wind or The Wise Man's Fear, the Cathay is a character in The Wise Man's Fear that gave me like put this idea into my head of like, oh, if you have a all-knowing malicious being, all they have to do is know the exact words to tell you and word it the exact way it wants it to set you down a very specific path to self-destruction, right? So the Oracle says the things it does to Will and the other characters because it has an end goal.
Yes.
And that goal is going to be revealed in book 4 with Alan.
Cool. And I just love the way that the Oracle speaks to the characters with all this kind
Oh,
of
thanks.
the imagery and the metaphors and using the wolves and the animals. Is there any significant meaning to those expressions that the Oracle uses, or is that just your way of having the Oracle speak in kind of a creepy
Um,
way?
that is a interesting question, but hold on. Let me just. So, are you asking if the like characters being called what they're called is relevant? Is that what you're
Uh,
asking?
well, I would assume that it's relevant in the sense of, we'll call, we'll call, calling him a wolf and things of that nature, or a coyote or whatever the other ones might have been, that they would use. I assume that's just some, denomination of his character, right? And the choices that he makes. But is there any outside significance of calling the different characters by animals and things of that nature?
Yes. So there will be being called the wolf, or Alicia being called the bunny, is supposed to speak to a an archetype, like an archetypical character, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, there at one point, Will is called the Mad Wolf, right? And
Yeah.
he takes on the nickname Mad Wolf. And there is a scene in The Bitter Remains where that's called back to. That I've already written. It's in chapter 9,
Uh-huh.
where Alicia brings up. I had set like I'm not reading off the screen, so I'm paraphrasing a little bit, but I had set 12 people to the Mad Wolf, and not once was he defeated. Essentially, right? You remember
And
where she
so
talks about
she's,
bringing around fuck
yeah.
boys, essentially? Yeah. So like, there is him being called the Mad Wolf is indicative of at the like if you were to boil down.
The amount of boyfriends he beat up, is that where we're going? He beat
No, if you were to boil down who Will was as a person, like who is Will, the Mad Wolf is who Will is,
He's a
right? No
fighter.
matter how he's a fighter, he won't let something go, right? He will scrap, he will tear, he will chew, and he will not give up until he's dead. And that is who he is at the very bottom of his being. And so like in that, the way that these mythical beings look at people is like their most boiled down features. It's not always animals. To
Yeah.
the Oracle, it's animals. But if you remember in The Bitter Youth, what did the Morrigan call KK? Do you remember?
I don't.
Bright match.
Right
She
match.
said, "Oh, little brat match," or she called warrior. Is that what she called Richie?
I'm trying to
Bitter Iron,
recall.
I think in the rewrite I called him Bitter Iron because of the bitter iron of a sword.
Uh-huh.
But essentially the way that these deities, they're called Pelled Crowns. The way Pelled Crowns and Waning Remnants look at mortals is essentially they break them down to their very, very core being and allude or emphasize that principle.
Interesting. Okay. Yeah, yeah. No, that makes sense. I appreciate that explanation. While we're on the topic, or we briefly brushed the topic of Alicia,
Mhm.
can you explain kind of how you view the relationship between Will, Alicia, and Shannon? What does Will think about these characters? What does he want? Um,
let
can you talk
me
about
let me reflect
those
that let me reflect
relationships?
that story back towards you.
Mhm.
What do you think Will, like when he first met Shannon and Alicia, what do you think his initial reaction was? Like what do you think,
So
like
he initially, my understanding, he's initially very attracted to Shannon,
Mhm.
and he's very intrigued by her.
Yeah.
And I don't think it's too much of a spoiler to say that he has those little makeout sessions. Is it okay if I say the characters that that's
Yeah.
with? Yeah,
Yeah,
those
yeah,
little
yeah.
makeout sessions with Alicia, and they end up
Mhm.
getting together and things of that nature. Um, I
So
think at
you are beating around the core thing I was trying to allude to already. You're already saying he was intrigued, he was infatuated with Shannon, right?
yeah.
That's what I wanted you to take. But what about, like, so if you were to boil down the thing with Alicia, where would you go for Alicia with that same level?
So, so with Alicia, I think that they have a very physical relationship, but at the same
Mhm.
time, very caring, and they do love each other. And she's often very motherly towards him, and he's very protective of her, and they do have a good relationship overall. I think that they are better suited to be friends,
Mhm.
um, than anything else. But
So do you know the difference between agape and eros?
I don't know.
So the Greeks believed in five different types of love, right?
Mhm.
The most two prevalent ones for romance were agape and eros, right? Eros was like lustful, desireful love. To like when you like love at first sight is what eros would most commonly be boiled down to, right? Infatuation, not true, like not like rational love, right? Agape is more like the love of like a human for another human brought to a higher level, right? Caring deeply about someone, willing to self-sacrifice for that person, right? In
Yeah.
that way, I tried to write it where if you were to boil it down, Will felt agape for Alicia, but he felt eros for Shannon.
Okay. And I think that comes through. It does come through. I guess my I want to see, because Shannon is such a mysterious character. I'm
Mhm.
excited to have her explored a little more. Um, and of course she will be, because it sounds like she has a book of her own. And we'll see more of her from other characters. Especially
She like
especially Alan,
so
I'm
she will be
assuming.
in book 2, but book 3 is all her book, and you will get to know why she acts the way she does. Um, how did you feel about her after reading her three coins?
I still found, you know, I could I feel like I had a better understanding of her as a person, but my mind keeps going back to wondering exactly what Will sees in her, right? Like, is it
Yeah.
just the mystery? Is it just the physical attraction? Because I'm not saying she's a bad person, but
Mm-mm.
there's not it's almost like I don't understand what she sees in Will, and I don't understand what Will sees in her. And so and maybe maybe that's why they could potentially be a good couple. Is I don't know. um
So,
she's a troubled
man,
character.
I wish Nat had read the book already, so I could get her input from this too. So that's good. You not knowing why they feel so attracted to one another is great. That's on purpose. And if you notice, they don't know why they're drawn to each other. If you remember the scene in the guest bedroom when
Yeah.
Will's birthday, or yeah, Will's birthday. Um, that's a something where if you think about it and kind of go towards like if you go back and reread it, if you reread that scene, now that you've finished the book, I hope that you will come out of that scene with a different emotion than when you read it the first time.
It was very yes.
Like I would actually love for you to read the book again just to see how much more you pick up on the second read, because that's something I struggle with. Like I love that about a Patrick Rothfuss book,
Uh-huh.
where it's you get so much more the second reading than you ever could have the first time, right? And so I tried to go for that as well,
Yeah,
where it's like I wanted to be able to get that same level across.
I get the sense that it's there. Like, I think they say the sign of a great book is no matter how many times you read it, you're always on peeling new layers, and there's always
Yeah.
something that you missed the first time. And I get the sense that that exists in this book. I find that, yeah, I was a little bit confused at what happened. I'm assuming we're trying not to say exactly what happened, but I was a little bit confused at the suddenness of that, and then the fact that it kind of replays itself in a stronger way near the
At the
end.
end.
Um,
Yep.
I guess, and I'll let you decide if this is something that we openly speak about right now. But when that does happen between
Mhm.
Shannon and I'm gonna try not to stay on this subject for too long because I don't want to bore
No, you're
everyone
good.
who hasn't read the book. Um, when that happens between them near the end of the book,
Mhm.
um, do you feel like one of them was strongly in the wrong as far
Yes.
as that? Because
I think they were both in the wrong.
yeah, because I walked away from that scene, well, I might have to, even just out of my own private curiosity but without wanting to spoil, I might even have to ask you about this when we're off stream.
Yeah,
um
ask me about this off stream because I know what you're about to ask, and I agree with you, and that was on purpose, and we'll talk
okay.
about it off stream.
Okay. Yeah, there was some potential manipulation in that section
Yep.
that could be potentially problematic, not in a bad way for the book, but bad for the characters
Yep.
as they look back on those moments. So,
That
um,
will be addressed. That will be addressed strongly, very, very strongly in book three.
okay. All right. So I think I do want to get into reading the two stories, but I think I have one more question.
Yeah, go ahead.
We have the beginner's maw, right?
Mhm.
And the oracle and all these things surrounding caves. Why
Mhm.
caves? What was it about caves that drew you in and made, and why are
Um,
they such a big part of this world?
so the original idea for it being called the Caver Gang stories and being set around like caves was actually because of the oracle and the misconception people have about what oracles were, right?
Okay.
And it spiraled from that, and like I was like, well, I think I can write a pretty good cave scene, and I tried my hand at writing one. I was like, Shit, I'm really good at writing cave scenes. Hell yeah. So, I mean, I kind of stuck with it after that.
Yeah, it really does. If you've read, it's obviously nothing remotely similar to Ted the Caver, but it really makes me think of those images in Ted the Caver, like because you do a good job of writing those like kind of claustrophobic scenes
Mhm.
where Will is digging through the cave, it's through a little. It's such a tight fit. It makes me think of those pictures from Ted the Caver,
Yeah.
where he's just like trapped in there, and they want to get out so bad. They don't care if they're cutting their forearms and bleeding all over.
Mhm.
They just want to get out so bad. um there's a lot to be done there. And now imagine, people in the chat, imagine being in a cave and you can't see anything and you can smell everything around you and you're so trapped you can barely move, and now something is talking to you in different voices, and saying things to you that you don't want to hear. If you really, I wish I didn't have aphantasia so I could actually envision
Imagine
that.
it.
But I imagine for someone that can really picture that in their head and imagine being in that situation, I imagine that's terrifying scenes. And I
I will
really
say
enjoyed that.
that there are a few things in my life, and you're absolutely right, Panda. I do have some experience with caves as well because of where I'm from and the abundancy of caves and sinkholes, and having gone through them as a kid, as a teenager. But I will say that like I there are a couple of scenes that I've written where I've taken a step back and been like, damn, I wrote that. Holy shit, I wrote that. And one of them was the second time he goes into the Oracle's cave
Hmm.
and the feeling. And whenever I went back and reread it, I was like, oh, hot damn, I cooked. I absolutely, I fucked that up. I did that. I made that. And I was so proud of that. And then having others read that and being like, I have never gotten cold sweats from reading until I read that passage made me smile because I was like, you're damn right I did. So,
Oh man. Yeah, no, that there are some scenes that really really got to me in a good way. Especially, I won't say what it is, but there's a scene around in the middle of the book where something very bad happens to Will. Um or more precisely to someone that's close to him. And there is so much
mhm.
foreshadowing if you look back.
There's
And I think
also there's also what's referred to as misshadowing.
yeah.
And if you look at because I don't if you look at what the other part of that pairing does for a living, you would expect that person to be the one, right?
Mhm. Yeah,
Do you know what I mean?
I think I know what you mean.
Yeah.
It's man, and then I'll ask this. And this will be the last thing I ask before we go
Yeah.
ahead and read um, these two stories of yours that are related to the Bitterverse, and related to the Bitter question. So I don't think this is too much of a spoiler. There's a some point in the early stages of the book. This is a silly question. This is not an
No, you're
important
good.
question. Where I forget who it was. Was it Alan? It might have been Alan, who implies that Alicia made out with Theo. Was that a joke? I could not tell if he was joking or not when he said that. Did that actually happen?
So Panda can attest to this. Small town friend groups can be very incestuous, where everyone has dated everyone, and there's like there's those relationships can collapse and then reform and then collapse. Um, so Alicia never made out with Theo. Um, she did make out with Alan. Uh, and Alan is actually jealous of what's going on with Will and is
Oh,
trying to, hey bro, maybe don't do that. And like he doesn't want to, And now that I tell you that, when you go back and read it, I hope you see it. Theo,
man.
however, has a history with Shannon,
Yeah.
an on and off again relationship with Shannon, that doesn't stop at the end of the book.
Yeah,
I will tease that.
which Will is somewhat not happy about. And he's jealous at points. There's a lot of jealousy.
Hey Willow, welcome in, dude.
Hey Willow, how you doing? Man, I have a lot more questions, but I think we're going into a territory where I'm asking stuff that people
We'll have to do a
don't
spoiler stream and
necessarily-
yeah,
people don't necessarily have the context to understand what, like, we're talking around what we're talking about.
Well, you didn't want to ask me questions until after the stream, so now after the stream, me and you we can chat. And
Yeah,
you can pick my brain.
I'll have some questions for you.
I love this. I'll be honest with you, I absolutely love this. This is like, as a writer, this has been a dream come true. Just having someone so invested in the story that they're just like, oh, I want to know more. Tell me. So,
Yeah, I need to reread it. Probably after this semester ends, I'll need to go back and reread it when I can devote more time to it, because there really is a lot of layers to the book, guys, that I think will become more clear even on a second read, but more so when the next books come out and there's an opportunity to read the whole series. It's really gonna be great. So I'm excited for the next book. And you said that one could potentially come out in March, the second one.
The original plan was March. It's gonna probably be June.
Yes, that's right.
Because I'm gonna have to work on it. And I just started back into classes. So, oh hey Bunder, dude, you missed me reading out the. So Bunder here is the Anthony. That was mentioned earlier that you complimented me. I was complimented on my pronunciation of a French name. So take that. But that's Anthony right there. Hi, Bunder. Out here doxing him in real time. All right. But yeah, I think that like, yeah, let's convey on those things off stream so that we can
talk.
We can discuss things. Yeah, spoilers that aren't going to ruin it for people who haven't read it yet. Give me like 30 seconds to go grab a drink really quick, and then we can hop into the bitter song.
The bitter song, cool. Sounds good.
Cool. Or do you want to do the disclosure first? I think the song is better starting out.
Yeah,
let's do
the song first.
All right, sounds good.
The song, then we'll do disclosure.
All right, cool. I'll be right back. Whiskey to sip on while we read this next story.
Hey, whiskey?
There he is. Yeah.
We can't be having alcohol. Sorry.
Bro, I can do whatever I want. I'm a demigod. Just because you can't drink doesn't mean I can't.
I can drink. I choose not to. So, guys, the way we're going to be doing this, I'm going to be essentially, if you've ever watched Creepcast, it's going to be pretty similar to that. I'm going to be reading most of the content. He's going to be jumping in for the dialogue.
Yeah.
All right. You ready?
And you're on the right one. All right, cool.
Yeah.
Because I will tell you that a name has been changed in this version because I changed something. So, like, if anyone has read the original Bitter Song, not Bitter Song, sorry, no, that's for Bitter Disclosure. Disregard. Bitter Disclosure is still got the same names.
Cool.
The Bitter Disclosure has the different names. The Bitter Song has the same names as before. All right, cool. We're good to go.
All right. Before we start, do you have any context to give for this that relates it to the Bitter verse and the Bitter question, or does it pretty much stand on its own?
So this one has the same level of supernatural involvement, I would say, as the Bitter question, compared to the Bitter Youth, where you know what happened in the Bitter Youth. That was a much higher level of supernatural involvement. Does that make sense?
Yes.
All right, cool.
All right.
I'm not sorry, Panda. So also, we are going to be ignoring chat until one of us, I will leave it up to Connor to, break the cadence of the song to discuss things. Since I'm the author, I know what's going on. But whenever you're ready, man, I'm ready to go.
Let's go ahead. All right, guys, this is the Bitter Song by Augustus. Let's get started. Day 1. Welcome to Camp Hollowvale. It was only my 5th summer at Camp Hollowvale. 1 year as a camper before it shut down, 1 year when it reopened, and 3 as staff. But somehow it felt like I'd spent every important summer of my life here. It had that effect on some people. Most of us who felt that way ended up as counselors once we aged out. Even the current owner, Marshall Lark, reclusive tech millionaire turned nostalgic zealot, was once a camper here. He bought it after he struck rich, had the whole place remodeled from the ground up, claimed this camp taught him the leadership and perspective needed to succeed, or whatever. I don't see it. But I came back even after my parents stopped forcing me, so maybe he was onto something. The new kids don't know the difference. They see fresh planked porches and matching banners on every cabin door and think it's always been this clean, this curated, this neat. But it wasn't. Not before it closed in 2015. Back then it smelled like you'd expect a summer camp to. Cheap bleach, sweaty teenagers, a tinge of mildew, and the ever-present odor of wood smoke. Now it smells like cedar polish and controlled nostalgia, not rot and sunscreen and the honest stink of 50 years of stories. Which is probably why I feel so uneasy around Mr. Lark. Things that don't decay aren't clean. They're concealed. Controlled. And he didn't want this camp to decay at all. It was the first day of arrivals, and I was standing there holding my tribe assignment. Felt like deja vu. Ash Tribe. Just like the last 2 years, I shouldn't be surprised, really. They never say it outright, but I'm the only one who seems to connect with the misfits that always get pushed into Ash. You know the ones. The quiet ones. The awkward ones. The ones who flinch if you speak too loudly. Those types. I'm sensing some kind of connection to abuse. So
See where that's the implication.
Yeah, those types. So I waited at the drop-off point for Ash Tribe, idly bouncing a tennis ball off one of the boys' cabins. Drew Ellison was one of the first to arrive. He stepped out of the car in a hoodie too warm for July and a backpack that looked heavier than it should have been. He didn't wave or shout across the lawn like returning kids usually did. Just stood there, scanning the tree line like he was checking to see if the woods had changed without him. They hadn't. They hadn't even changed while this place was shut down and remodeled. I remembered him from the year before. Polite. Quiet in groups, but weirdly bold one-on-one. Asked more questions than most kids his age. About camp rules. About ghost stories. About why things are always done this way instead of that. Never disruptive, but always looking. Like he was trying to find the shape of something that didn't want to be seen. He still carried one of those black and white composition notebooks. This one labeled with I suck at Roman numerals, V8 on the front in blocky lettering. I hadn't seen inside it the last 2 years he'd been coming. Still haven't. I'm guessing at this point, I never will. The boy that got out of the car with him, Nate Caldwell, according to the roster, was new. Same age, same tribe, bit more guarded, more defensive. The kind of kid who'd rather be anywhere else but was too polite to say so and way too bad at hiding it. Slouched shoulders, eyebrows slightly knit and concerned. The moment he and Drew stepped apart, you'd never guessed they were together. But when standing next to each other, it was like a scientist and his bodyguard invading some dangerous outposts for samples. They didn't say much at first, but they stuck close. Not in a codependent way, more like a two-person perimeter, just waiting for the first alien life to hop out at them. And that's when she arrived. Kennedy Moss stepped out of her dad's truck like she was walking into court. She was a new camper too, and the way her dad kept apologizing told me more than enough about how happy she was to be here. She had her arms crossed before the engine shut off, barely looking at the welcome crew. When I asked if she needed help finding her cabin, she asked how the camp chose tribal names and whether we were still using any from actual native practices or just made-up wilderness branding. Not rude, just direct, like she'd come here with the armor already strapped on, hand on her sword. I pointed her towards the cabin, and she started walking toward it, but stopped halfway there. She turned back and asked if the singing of Whisper Rock thing was just a creepy urban legend, or if we actually make those kids chant her name in the woods at midnight. I was shocked a new camper had already heard of our local legend, but played it off with a casual shrug. I explained that we only ever brought her up at the first campfire, and if she was mentioned outside of that, she might start singing. A simple, playful joke. She looked like she would draw her sword at that instant and slay me. Then she disappeared into the Ash Tribe's girls' cabin. The two boys had watched us from the porch of the boys' cabin. Whereas Drew watched her like a curious observer, Nate watched her like she was a predator that might attack his ward. The kid also couldn't stop looking when she when she moved out of sight. The look I'd come to recognize so easily since becoming a counselor. Hormone-driven love that would end in heartbreak in 2 weeks when they went their separate ways. So, off to a strong start for the Oddball Tribe. The other 12 boys and 10 girls who showed up on day 1 brought my roster up to 25 for dinner roll call. Dinner was always loud the first night.
All right, hold on a second. So, how are you feeling so far?
I'm excited. I like the setup. I like all the characters that are kind of given this 4D element. I think, like you mentioned earlier, when talking about the bitter question, about kind of giving every character enough of a personality and background that it's clear that there's a larger world than what exists in the story.
Yeah, like her dad apologizing and
and her coming she's not rude, she's just direct, right? Like these little things that show that I think a lot of times, like newer writers, they forget that these characters are supposed to exist outside of these events. And I think it shows that you are aware of what's you're aware when there's a sense that the author knows more than what he's telling, right? And I'm not sure what to think about the plot so far. I don't know. I'm not sure what direction this is going in. But I'm excited.
I mean, you've already kind of caught the hook. But have you been to his summer camp?
I haven't, no.
Okay, so I'm curious if anyone in chat has been to a summer camp, and because I've been to summer camp twice, and I can tell you just how like much of this I drew from experience as well, as far as like the smell, the feeling of like, oh my god, like the first day you're there, you're like, you lock eyes with that one person, you're like, that's my girl until the end of camp, and then like it's gonna end in heartbreak. It's gonna end in heartbreak. But anyways, sorry. I was just curious if you'd been to camp. Yeah, go ahead.
No, and I'll take this moment to say, everyone in the chat, since this is a rare occasion where we have the author here actually in the call, if you have a question about the story, just ask. We'll, as soon as we get to a stopping point, I'm sure Augustus would be happy to answer any question that comes his way.
Oh, I'd absolutely love to.
All right, cool. Dinner was always loud the first night. Too many kids pretending they weren't nervous, laughing too hard, or bolstering about made-up feats of athleticism. Too many counselors trying too hard to seem laid back and cool, while we were all barely 3 years removed from being these same kids. The dining hall was all long tables and swinging screen doors and the faint hum of fluorescent lights overhead. The food hadn't changed since I was a camper. Meat pucks, they said, were burgers, mass-prepped mac and cheese, something pretending to be cornbread, and juice with more sugar than water. Even the ice cream machine was working, so kids were allowed a bowl if they finished their dinner and got away with dumping it without being noticed. Ash Tribe officially had tables 3 and 4, but that didn't really mean much. Kids would end up sitting with whoever made them feel safe. The younger ones clung to whoever made eye contact first, like they expected them to play protector. The older ones tried to look like they didn't care where they landed, but always ended up next to whoever made their hearts flutter a little more than anyone else. Drew and Nate took the far side, backs to the wall, facing the room. Kennedy sat at the edge, facing them like she didn't quite want to be part of any group, but at least these two seemed the most likely to stand up for her if someone said something about her fiery hair. Drew picked at his food and occasionally scribbled something in his notebook, or consulted it for information as Kennedy kept asking him pointed questions about the camp's lore. Nate kept his eyes glued to her, all but gawking. I don't think he even blinked, except when she looked at him. Then he'd glance at other tribes awkwardly, feigning interest in what they were doing. Such an accurate representation of anxiety and
Thanks.
conversations. Maybe from experience, I don't know.
Yeah.
Uh, I was strolling
Yeah,
by when she
absolutely.
stopped. I was strolling by when she stopped her barrage of questions to Drew to turn them on me. She asked what time the ritual ghost story was. Ooh. I told her sundown. It wasn't set for a specific time. That earned me a half smirk, a full eye roll, and a snide remark about occult nonsense. See, in a horror story, when they start talking about occult nonsense, that's usually not a good sign for the characters. The rest of dinner blurred together. I helped a kid from Maple Tribe clean up spilled lemonade. Devin passed out allergy wristbands. Tasha kept warning everyone to use their inside voices and getting ignored. Eventually, the sun dipped low enough to call everyone to the central atrium. The campfire pit sat at the edge of the lower clearing, ringed by rows of half logs stacked in rough tiers through the stone fire circle. Just past the tree line, where the sky starts bleeding orange behind the mountains, you could just make out the sound of wind whistling through the valley. We'd already stacked the firewood that morning. Devin had his guitar and was strumming something simple for warm-up. The kids arrived in waves, herded by cabin groups and counselors with head counts in hand. Ash Tribe settled in last. Always did. Not in a rebellious way or anything. More like they just waited for the noise to thin out first and made sure everyone else got to pick where they wanted to sit. Another sign that we had more restrained kids than should really be in one group. Makes you wonder why they're all being pushed to this Ash Tribe. I'm excited to see. They settled in a clump near the left side of the circle. Drew sat cross-legged with his notebook open but untouched. Nate leaned back on his hands, face unreadable. Kennedy kept glancing around like she was clocking the exits. I didn't say anything, just took a seat near the log pile and waited for the rest of the stories to finish. The fire was already going when the last of the ridge kids dropped into place. Crickets, popping wood, low whispers. The endless loop of 1564 chord progression twanging from the guitar. And then Devin turned to me. Jonah.
Jonah, you're up.
Oh, my bad.
Oh, you're about to take my part, weren't you?
Well, no, I did. Let's try that again. Sorry, chat. Right. Crickets, popping wood, low whispers, the endless loop of 1564 chord progression twanging from the guitar. And then Devin turned to me.
Jonah, you're up.
I let out a half-hearted sigh, but didn't argue. I knew it would fall to me. Ever since they heard me recite it that first summer, back when Mr. Lark nodded like I'd unlocked something, it had been mine to tell. My fault for having a good baritone, I guess. I didn't stand up. I never do. Just leaned forward with my elbows on my knees, voice low enough that the ones whispering had to hush to hear me. That's how you control a crowd. You don't shout. You let the quiet do it for you. That's like, I love little things like that where it shows the character has a strong expertise or a strong skill in something. And it really goes more than like just writing, like, I'm really good at this, right? It's such a subtle way of just giving that impression in our heads that this guy's good at what he's doing. And it's such like a simple, it's a couple words that do it. So that's a nice touch. The fire popped once, sharp and hollow. Devin muted his guitar and set it down. I watched the flames dance across the ring of faces. Some lit up in amber, some dipped in and out of shadow. Drew's face didn't move. Kennedy crossed her arms. Nate blinked like he hadn't realized we'd already started. Then I began.
You ever hear the woods sing to you? Not a camp song, not a radio or a speaker. I mean real singing. Low, slow, and so beautiful it makes you forget what you were doing.
A few kids snickered at that. I didn't acknowledge them.
No, I mean it.
I let that hang a second. The most gentle rebuke you can imagine.
These trees, they hold on to things. Sounds mostly. Some say the mist in these hollers ain't fog at all. It's an old breath of a song that never got heard all the way. A song that should never be heard.
The wind shifted. The fire leaned. Shadows danced about me like morbid dancers mourning the tale they knew too well. Someone on the ridge log whispered,
"What the hell?"
and got hushed. But now there is singing
But
again.
now, Try again.
You know what it was, guys? Is I saw there was no closing quotation mark, and I thought that that quotation was an accident, but I didn't realize it's two
So
paragraphs.
like you as an English professor, like or English,
Oh, I know how to write
major. Yeah.
dialogue.
That's one of the
It's
things. Like someone tried to correct me on that. I was like, bro, if you're gonna try to correct someone on Reddit about quotations, you should look up the rules.
Yeah, for writers in the chat that don't know, the way it works is if you want to separate paragraphs within one speaker, you just don't do a closing quotation mark on the first line. You just jump to the next line. You still use the opening quotation mark to emphasize that it's still the same person talking, but you don't close until they're done speaking.
Yeah.
Just want to get that out there since there's some I know new writers in the chat, I'm sure. But yeah, let's try that again. Someone on the ridgelog whispered
What the hell?
and got hushed.
But now they're singing again. And what's singing? That's how you know she's close. The Hollowvale ghost.
I paused, and the silence was thick enough to even pad out the popping of the fire.
They say a girl went missing here a long time ago. No one remembers her name. Just that one night, she wandered away from her cabin and never came back.
I watched the kids now. A few leaned in. One kid on the glade bench pulled their hoodie strings tighter. Kennedy rolled her eyes but didn't look away.
Some say she got lost.
I offered, pushing a tone of dismissal into my voice.
Some say she was looking for someone.
I shrugged, soft, like it might be possible.
Some say she was looking to disappear.
That one, I whispered, confirming the truth without handing it to them fully.
But everyone agrees on where she went, where she lingers. There's a clearing out there.
I gave a lazy but pointed nod past them and into the woods.
No trail signs, no birdsong, a place that time and wind forgot.
Crack. One of the half logs shifted under a camper's feet. Someone giggled nervously. I didn't. I stared into the fire as if remembering the girl was sacred and the interruption had nearly sent me into a rage. Everyone fell silent once more.
And in the center is a jagged shard of the earth's bone, forced up and out of its flesh instead of healing back into place. Whisper Rock.
I saw Drew shift then. Not a flinch, just straighter, like he already knew the name. It impressed me he didn't start jotting down notes at that moment.
That's where she is now. And if you ever hear her singing atop it, barefoot, head tilted, still as a held breath, don't speak.
More stillness. A girl near the front mouthed the words. I said them.
Because if she stops singing, she'll start talking. Just a few soft words. Nothing threatening. Something that makes you want to answer. Something you'll want to say back.
I lowered my voice just a little more.
And if you do, if you repeat it.
Several kids inhaled at the same time.
That's when she gets inside your mouth. And once that takes hold, it won't let go. First, you'll stumble on your words. Then you stop making sense. Eventually, you stop being heard. Finally, you stop being at all.
Oh, shivers! Oh man, you have a you have a really good voice. I love the dialogue there. A log cracked loud.
Thanks.
Someone squealed. Devin tossed in a handful of dry leaves. The fire flared, shadows stretching like claws across the trunks. I waited for the silence to take hold again before finishing.
So if you come up on a rock in a clearing, or if you hear her singing in the woods, run. And, worst of all, if you see her there atop the Whispering Rock, stop. Don't move at all. Close your eyes, cover your ears, and wait. Maybe she won't notice you. And when you open your eyes again, you won't be there anymore. But if she does notice you, if she speaks to you and you repeat her words,
I let the pause settle in their bones.
well, she's not trying to hurt you. She just doesn't want to be alone anymore. And if she gets her words inside your mouth, she never leaves.
Oh man. Okay. The fire crackled. A few of the younger campers looking toward the trees. One shifted to sit a little closer to their counselor. A branch snapped somewhere behind the pit, probably a raccoon, and 3 kids turned white as salt. Drew didn't blink. Kennedy pulled her knees up and rested her chin on them, eyes narrowed in suspicion. Nate glanced at both of them and said nothing. I leaned back, wiped the soot from my palm onto my jeans, and stared into the flames. Same story, same ending. But somehow, it felt heavier this year. Like I hadn't told it. It had told itself. We stayed there for a while after the last words left my mouth. No one clapped. No one laughed. A few kids squirmed and shifted, but most just stared at the fire like it might answer something if they looked hard enough. Devin eventually picked his guitar back up, playing a slower, haunting tune that then bounced into an upbeat jig. It wasn't much of a transition, but it worked. Soon everyone was singing camp songs in every key but the right one, and the somber mood melted away. Once s'mores and riddles were done, it was finally time to call it for the night and head back to the cabins. But we weren't done. There was still one part left. There always was.
Anyone have a question before we call it for the night?
Tasha asked. A few heads shook. One kid whispered something about sports the next day. Then a small hand went up. Maple Tribe, I think. Maybe 10 or 11. Freckles, oversized tee with the camp's name and an arc over a scenic painting of valley. Her knees were drawn up to her chest. The look on her face said it all. She didn't actually expect to be called on. Tasha gave her a nod.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. It's the best I can do, man.
No.
I can't do girl voices. All right, leave me alone.
No. I'm not laughing at you. I'm laughing like it was like it's good, but I'm laughing because I was surprised to hear like a girl voice come like.
I mean, I have a DM, so I do a lot of voices, right? So like I'm used to like trying to characterize people like with my voice. So like to me, Tasha is like a, you know, she's like probably 17, 18 years old, but she's like a Southern girl, like born and raised South girl. So like she has that go ahead,
she has a
you know, kind of twang to her voice.
Yeah. The girl's voice was soft, but the fire made everything else quieter.
Has anyone ever actually been to Whisper Rock?
I can picture her doing the little like anime thing. She's putting her fingers together. That's silence. Not the kind of silence that waits for someone to answer. The kind that knows the answer and wants to hear you say it anyway. I let the pause stretch. Not for drama. For honesty. And just like that, they were all back in the ghost story again. All held breath and anxious glances. Then I said, "No one's ever found Whisper Rock."
Ah, stop it, Connor.
Fuck.
Try again.
And just like that, they were all back in the ghost story again. All held breath and anxious glances. Then I said,
"No one's ever found Whisper Rock. At least, no one has found it and returned."
If someone says that in a horror story, you know someone's going to go look for Whisper Rock. The girl blanched and looked away. Several others did too. A few of the older kids snorted quietly, trying to pretend they weren't unnerved. Kennedy tilted her head, like she was trying to memorize the exact way I'd phrased it. Nate was watching her again. Drew didn't move. Tasha clapped her hands once, causing a couple of campers to jump and yelp softly.
All right, that's enough campfire story. Blah, blah, blah. Give me another read-in.
Tasha clapped her hands once, causing a couple of campers to jump and yelp
All
softly.
right, let's try again. Another try. Come on, we got this. We got this.
Asha clapped her hands once, causing a couple of campers to jump and yelp softly.
All right, that's enough campfire ghost stories for one night. Grab your cabin groups. Let's head back. Counselors, head counts as you go.
The spell broke like a branch. Kids stood too fast, backpacks zipped, whispered jokes restarted, too loud and too quick to be natural. Someone pretended to hum creepily and got shushed hard. Ash Tribe didn't move first. They never do. But they moved together. I stayed behind to dump sand over the fire, just enough to make sure the logs wouldn't flare again overnight. The woods had gone still. And when I finally stood up to follow everyone else, I heard someone humming from behind me. I turned and found no one left in the circle. I listened hard and found nothing but silence. The trees weren't singing. Not yet. But the woods were listening. Waiting. Ooh. That's a good ending to day one.
Thank you. I tried.
we get the hint of singing. And we know we don't want the singing to start. Because once it stops, that's not gonna be good. Day 2. Whispers in the woods.
Do you want to ask any questions before we jump into day 2?
I want to see where the story takes us. I want to see where it takes us.
Let's hit it.
I don't want to break the flow too much. Day 2. Whispers in the woods. Breakfast the next morning came with the usual chaos. Spilled juice, clattering trays, and the low drone of 100 conversations and blooming romances. Somehow all sounded the same. But beneath the noise, something felt pulled tight, like someone had twisted the camp just slightly out of alignment and left it that way. Like someone else was listening at the campfire the night before. Ash Tribe filtered into the dining hall last again. No surprise. But I clocked Drew the moment he stepped inside. He wasn't looking at the food. Wasn't looking at the tables either. He kept glancing back toward the tree line through the windows. Not staring. Just checking. Like he thought something might have followed him up from the fire pit. Or maybe it hadn't followed him at all. Maybe it was already here. He didn't seem scared. Just turned to a frequency the others couldn't hear yet. Like the singing was at the edges of comprehension for everyone, but he could almost grasp it now. I didn't say anything. I couldn't hear it. So I just watched. He finally moved toward the food line when Nate elbowed him lightly and said something I didn't catch. Kennedy followed a few steps behind, hands in her pockets, chewing on her cheek like she was a red-maned hamster that just realized it stored all the answers there and it couldn't quite reach them. They sat where they had the night before, backs to the wall, near the far end of Ash's tables. That unspoken perimeter again. Kennedy sat opposite them, still not quite part of their expedition, still an alien to be studied, but not apart from it either. I made my rounds, mostly checking on allergy bans and cabin sign-ins. I just finished a head count at Mabel's table to cover for Ellis when Kennedy's voice cut through the chatter behind me.
You don't really believe that story, do you?
Not loud, not accusing, but it was clear she wanted me to answer. I turned halfway toward her, still holding the clipboard with a half-finished checklist.
Which part?
She rolled her eyes.
The singing, the rock, the she gets inside your mouth nonsense. It's all just a campfire morality tale, right? Like, don't wander off, don't talk to strangers, only wrapped in a spooky packaging.
Her tone was casual, but her eyes weren't. She was probing for the truth like so many gray men. I didn't smile. I just shrugged and said, some stories become truer when
Stop. All right, read me in again.
I'm drunk, I swear.
I've drunk so many buzzballs.
Her tone was casual, but her eyes weren't. She was probing for the truth like so many gray men. I didn't smile. Just shrugged and said,
some stories become truer when we pretend they're not. Others refuse to be ignored and lash out when people try to.
That gave her a full stop. She didn't look away, but she didn't follow up either. just picked up her plastic fork and stabbed at her scrambled eggs like they'd insulted her. Next to her, Drew finally stopped glancing at the trees, but only for a moment. Only long enough to look at me with accusatory eyes. Then he was jotting away at his notebook. The sun hadn't climbed too high yet when we set out on the herbalism trail. It was the kind of half-hearted educational programming that Mr. Lark insisted we keep around. Learning objectives stapled onto nature walks like we were trying to trick kids into thinking STEM was hiding behind every fern. Most of them didn't care. I led the group through the lower grove, pointing out the usual suspects. Witch hazel, jewelweed, bloodroot, wild ginger. Camp-safe facts. Nothing about poisons or folklore. Nothing that make anyone's parents ask questions come August. The scientist trio kept mostly to itself again. That wasn't unusual. But the pacing was off. Drew, the scientist himself, was lagging. At first it was just a step or two. Then a full stop. Then he'd be 10 feet behind, eyes locked on some gnarled tree like it hid some important answer in its knots. Each time I paused to point out another leaf or stem, he'd pause for just a bit longer before moving to catch up. Nate tried to act as a bridge, making sure Drew would catch up, but something was bothering him about his friend. You could see the frustration starting to brew in his shoulders, torn between keeping pace with the group and making sure Drew didn't vanish into the brush. Every few minutes, he'd turn back like he was counting steps between them, like something might be building in the space they kept stretching. Kennedy, meanwhile, stayed glued to my side. She didn't say much, but every time I offered a fact about a plant or why certain areas held more moss than others, she watched me like I was lying. Not to catch me in it, just to see if I'd flinch. Like she was waiting for the moment when I slipped and said something that gave the whole illusion away. We came to a small clearing where the sunlight filtered down in clean angles. Most of the kids gathered near a half-rotted log covered in turkey tail fungus and damp moss. Devin launched into a little spiel about spore dispersal. But Drew didn't come into the clearing. I turned to find him halfway down the slope, back half visible through the trees. Not frozen, not lost, just listening. I didn't call out, just walked a few steps back toward him. He didn't turn when I approached, not until I said his name. Then, softly, without meeting my eyes, still staring into the undergrowth, he said,
It's quiet in some places, like it's waiting for me to be alone.
I didn't answer right away. There are things you can say in a moment like that, reassuring counselor things. But most of them are lies or probing questions to see if they are living in an abusive home. So instead, I said,
Stick with the group, bud. Don't want to lose you to the Whispering Rock.
I really like the element that there's a horror here, but the person that is seeing them is not, or the person that is seeing the danger is not the main character. That's something you don't see very often, and it's really building some tension in the story, so I appreciate that.
Thanks.
Yeah. Drew nodded once, not even reacting to the mention of the rock. It was as if my casual mention confirmed something he already knew. Then he walked past me and back toward the others. I watched the space where he'd been staring a second longer. It was just woods, just kudzu and choked weeds. But it had been quieter there. And not just in the usual way. It wasn't a lack of birdsong or wind. No, wait, it was the lack of wind. It was as if the entirety of Hollow Vale was holding its breath so you could listen closer for something far away. Dinner that night was also quieter. Not completely silent. Not strange enough to worry the other counselors, in fact. It seemed like I was the only one that noticed. Just a little more tired laughter, a few longer silences between mouthfuls. The romantic tension between all the campers was just a little less boisterous. It was like the sun had taken more out of the kids than usual, and the wind holding its breath kept their sails flattened. That happens sometimes. Surely my worry was nothing more than unwarranted anxiety. The science team was back at their usual spot. Nate scarfed his food like he hadn't eaten all day. Kennedy was halfway through a grilled cheese, absentmindedly tapping a plastic fork against her cup of fruit-flavored sugar water like a metronome. Drew hadn't touched his tray. I saw him stand up, hesitate, then look around until he spotted me watching. After a moment, just longer than a long exhale, he made his way over to where I was scraping the last of my own dinner into the compost bin behind the kitchen. He hovered for a second. His voice was low, conspiratorial.
Can I ask you something?
I nodded.
Shoot.
He looked down at the bin, then at the trees visible through the screened window to our left. When he spoke, it wasn't a challenge, just curious, focused in the way he always was when something didn't line up.
Does the story ever change?
I tilted my head.
What story? The Hollowville girl. You mean the Hollowville ghost? I'm going to reread that. The Hollowvale girl. You mean the Hollow Valley ghost? No, the Hollowvale girl, he said. Oh, sorry, go ahead. No, see? Oh, shit. I was trying to think your spot.
Come on, man.
No.
Come on.
I know. I'll give you another clean read in. You mean the Hollow Valley ghost? No, the Hollowvale girl,
he said, like I should have known the difference.
Does it change year to year?
I shrugged, still unsure of his deeper meaning.
Not unless someone tells it differently?
That made him frown. Not confused, just concerned.
No,
he said, an edge of frustration leaking into the single word. An adult tired of a child that they know is playing dumb.
I don't mean the words. I mean the facts. Like what happened, where she went, why she went. Does any of those ever change?
I didn't answer right away. Because I wasn't sure. Not just unsure of the answer, but unsure if it was even the right question to ask. Like he was pulling on a thread I hadn't noticed was loose, and now I could feel something tugging back, unraveling.
Not that I've noticed,
I said finally, carefully.
Why?
He looked at me for a long moment. Not accusing, not afraid, just measuring something I couldn't see. But he didn't answer my question. He just nodded and went back to his table, tray still untouched. I watched him sit down, open his notebook, and start writing. I didn't move for a while. The food smelled the same. The laughter started up again at the next table. A kid from Glade Tribe shouted something about how they were going to win the canoe race tomorrow, and Ridge Tribe could eat a, her words not mine, pickle pie. But I couldn't spare a laugh. I couldn't shake the way Drew has ignored my simple question. Something was off. Not wrong. Not broken. Just shifted. Ever so slightly. Like someone had changed a single word in a story I'd memorized. And now I couldn't stop replaying it in my head, trying to figure out what that one difference really meant for the story structure. Its fundamental foundation. Day 3. Echoes that you repeat. The woods were louder than they should have been. It was like they had grown wary of holding their breath and now were releasing it all at once. Cicadas hissed like a pressure valve someone forgot to close. Birds chirped just slightly off rhythm. The leaves rustled without a breeze. Nothing was wrong. Not really. Nothing I could name. But it all felt staged. Like the forest was putting on a show of what the forest should sound like. Like a predator had caught its prey so it didn't need to be quiet any longer. We were headed to the obstacle course. Ash Tribe trailing behind me in single file, same as always. Becca, the junior girls counselor for Ash Tribe, was planted in the middle of the line, offering Goofy encouragement. Tasha, on loan from the Maple Tribe since we were doing the obstacle course, brought up the rear. 3 points of supervision, just like protocol. 3 anchors. The course wasn't far, maybe a quarter mile through the lower trail, close enough to the creek that you could hear the water sometimes when the kids got quiet. They didn't get quiet much. Every tribe loved the day they got to the obstacle course and spent the whole time hooting and hollering. All of them except Ash. Ash always smiled and enjoyed their time, but never seemed as lively as the other during their trials. Even among themselves, they weren't loud. There were occasional spurts of laughter, snippets of whispered teasing, someone kicking a pine cone too hard, but nothing they carried. Their presence never carried. I kept a casual head count while we talked. Habit. You start doing it without even realizing, marking each silhouette as it passes a certain tree trunk or bend in the trail. We'd been walking 10 minutes when I felt it. Too many. Oh, God. I stopped mid-step and let the line stretch ahead while I counted in my head. 26. That wasn't right. I scanned again, slower. Lips not moving, just checking heads. 25. There. That was right. I shook my head and muttered something to Becca about phantom campers. She laughed, offered me her half-finished granola bar with a wiggle of her eyebrows. I rolled my eyes and just marched on, thinking back on the heads I'd counted the first time. Had I seen a girl with long black locks of curly hair? No one in the Ash tribe had hair like that. Had I imagined it? We reached the obstacle course a few minutes later. Low wall, rope net, tire run, balance log over a mulch pit. It looked like something out of a dated boot camp video. The kids didn't care. They threw themselves at the stations with all the reckless joy you'd expect from a pack of overheated teenagers. Nate immediately nailed the rope climb. Kennedy made a sarcastic show of walking the log with her arms up like a tightrope artist. Mike, a plump 12-year-old with too much wit and a willingness to be the butt of his own jokes, face planted in the mulch and declared himself the future of American defense. That's really funny. Even Sam, our most athletic member of Ash Tribe, let the younger kids beat him once or twice so they could feel like heroes. Drew didn't do much. He walked the perimeter, occasionally leaned against a tree, scribbled. Not enough to worry about. Some kids just aren't willing to participate. It wasn't until we called everyone back to grab their bags that the unease bloomed again. I clapped my hands and motioned them toward the water coolers. Let's tank up before we head back.
Oh, fuck. Again, bro. Again, bro.
All right. I'm going to lock in now. I'm going to lock it in. I clapped my hands and motioned them toward the water coolers.
Hold on a second. Sorry, I'm trying to moderate on your stream, but I can't. There we go. Because you did make me a mod on your stream, so
Yeah.
I was banning someone from your chat. All right, go ahead. Sorry, give me another read-in.
Fuck you, disenchanted Bonadoo. Fuck you, dude.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, fuck you. Oh, wait. Am I allowed to cuss in your stream?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm a 2,000-year-old demigod. Of course I fucking cursed.
Yeah, fuck. I clapped my hands and motioned them toward the water coolers.
Let's tank up before we head back.
Becca passed out paper cups. Tasha rounded them into clusters by age groups. I stood on the edge of the clearing and scanned the group. Something was wrong. I didn't feel it this time. I knew it. 24. No need to count again. I had already done it 3 times before I realized that much. I stepped over to Becca. How many did you have?
How many? Oh my God, Connor! I'm the one that's had drinks, dude.
Dude, no. Listen. I'm 2 Diet Cokes deep.
2 Diet Cokes deep.
You don't know what this stuff does to me. You don't know what it does to me.
You don't understand, bro. You don't even know.
You don't understand how much caffeine
right.
I've had.
All right, let's try again.
Let me just take a deep breath and lock in.
Yeah, hit it from the 24.
Me. 24. 24. No need to count again. I'd already done it 3 times before I realized that much. I stepped over to Becca.
How many did you have on your roll this morning? 25?
She said without hesitating.
Same as yesterday. Tasha,
She blinked.
you guys have 25, right? Why?
She was already scanning the heads. I didn't answer. I was already moving, eyes dragging across every kid in that circle. I wasn't just checking for missing. I was checking for who. There's some part I already knew. Ben? There, laughing softly with one of the younger kids. Kennedy? Arms crossed, jaw tight, mad she couldn't beat Jill. Nate? Standing with his hands on his hips, sweat curling the edges of his hair. Mike? Still brushing mulch off his shirt and shouting something about a rematch. Sam? Over by the log pile, helping a camper refill a bottle. Drew? Drew was... I looked twice. Then again. He wasn't there. He wasn't anywhere. There was no path off the clearing, just trees. Just brush and shadow and angled shafts of sunlight that didn't quite reach the ground. It was thick as undergrowth could be without being called a wall. He couldn't have wandered off. Not through that. Something would have had to open, to swallow him whole into that green darkness. Maybe he really had been hearing her. And maybe he'd answered. I pushed the thought away and asked the other counselors to check with the campers, see if anyone had seen Drew. As they moved, I stepped away toward the edge of the clearing, checking for signs he might have been broken through the thicket. I didn't go far, just a trail bend, the nearby slope, a sweep toward the tree line. I called his name, not a shout, just loud enough to carry into the woods a little. The air felt tighter, like the forest was waiting to see how loud I'd get before I gave him back. I kept
So,
calm.
hold on a second. So what did you think of the term green darkness?
I've never heard that before, but I'm assuming that would be a darkness within the within the woods.
So, like, it's one of those things, if you've ever seen like a kudzu, like overgrowth or something, where it's like, I came up with the term green darkness because like at some point when the undergrowth and like the foliage is so thick that like it's green, but it's like shadows. Like it's like so green that there's like it's covering like lamppost, it's covering wires. It's just so green that's like a darkness that's covered everything. And I came up with that, and like you read past it and I was like, huh, okay, I wonder if you like that or not. And I wanted to ask.
I think it worked. It didn't like I knew what it meant in the context, and it
Well, that's the
worked.
important part. As long as you knew what it meant.
Yeah, and to be honest, I didn't stop because I just assumed it was a word I'd never heard before because it made sense,
Oh,
right? Like it felt like I didn't even realize
something that
that
should have
was
always
like
been there.
yeah.
Yeah.
No, I like that.
Okay.
Also, the other thing, and people in my stream, well, you are one of the people in my stream. You might have noticed sometimes when for me, focusing really hard when I'm reading out loud is a lot harder than when I'm just reading to myself. So sometimes I do miss things when I'm reading out loud. For whatever reason, I just don't have that same level of concentration when I'm reading out loud. So little things do slip by me sometimes.
That's okay. I understand.
Where was I? Did I finish that paragraph? I'm gonna start with I pushed the thought away. I pushed the thought away and asked the other counselors to check with the campers, see if anyone had seen Drew. As they moved, I stepped away toward the edge of the clearing, checking for signs he might have broken through the thicket. I didn't go far, just a trail bend, the nearby slope, a sweep toward the tree line. I called his name, not a shout, just loud enough to carry into the woods a little. The air felt tighter, like the forest was waiting to see how loud I'd get before I gave him back. I kept calm. The kids didn't need panic. Becca had already counted again, twice, and was whispering to Tasha like she was only one breath away from letting it show on her face. I saw Sam say something to them, and Becca pointed him toward me. After a moment, he jogged over, speaking just loud enough for me to hear, like he didn't want the others to think he was making it up.
I thought I heard him like humming, but it sounded weird. Thank you, Sam. Where was it?
I asked, keeping the edge from my voice. You never let a camper hear the worry.
Over by the log walk?
He said, eyes flicking in that direction.
Right before we all lined up for drinks.
I turned and followed the point of his finger. Past the log walk station, there was only a patch of dried pine needles and a ring of stones left behind by last year's group. No sound now. No bird startled into flight. No wind rustling. Just the hollow stillness of a place pretending not to breathe. Then
What's everyone doing?
we all turned. Drew was standing. That's not Drew. I think that's not Drew. We all turned. Drew was standing near the tire run, holding his water bottle like he'd been there the whole time, like he hadn't been gone at all. No one said anything. Tasha let out a sharp laugh. Becca whispered something I didn't catch and started a head count before I could. Sam looked between the log walk and the tire run like he'd missed a step in the story and just couldn't figure out where. Bro, I would shoot him in the head right now. I'd kill him right now. I'm not taking my chance. I'd kill him right now. I just stared.
So don't let Connor be
camp counselor.
Camp counselor.
Kid goes to pee. He comes back. I shoot him in the head. I just stared.
Where were you?
I asked, sharper than I meant. Drew frowned, shoulders stiffening.
I was just getting water. Is that not okay?
I took a breath.
You weren't with the group. I was right over there,
He said, pointing toward the rope net. His voice was calm now, like he'd never been gone, like it was an obvious truth. I nodded slowly.
Okay. Just stay close.
Nah, dude. Drew's acting different. He's acting different. He's acting too confident. I don't like him. This isn't Drew. Kill him. He shrugged. I'm not usually one to condone killing children.
Child violence.
But I'm also not one to say don't kill children. Right?
Okay, fair point.
He shrugged and walked back to the others like nothing had happened. We started lining up to head back, bags slung over shoulders. A few kids were already griping about how sore their legs were, or how the obstacle course was rigged against their height class. Becca was counting again. Tasha was cracking jokes as one of the older girl campers. Everything sliding back into the normal routine. That's when I heard something. It was soft, distant. Not a melody exactly, but close. It wasn't quite humming. No, it was too clear to be called a hum. Too shaped. It was feminine and lyrical, but without spoken words. It was like the sun-bleached bones of a song, the flesh long packed away, just like the hints of a deceased hymn, curling at the edges of the tree line like old weed smoke some counselor snuck in. I didn't move.
Bro, I am so proud of that line right there. I'm gonna be honest with you. I wrote that, and that was one of those lines where I was like, that just feels good on my tongue. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it did have a nice flow to it. Let me read that again. It was like the sun-bleached bones of a song, the flesh long picked away, just the hints of a deceased hymn, curling at the edges of the tree line like old weed smoke some counselors snuck in. Yeah, it's some people are, I think, afraid of long sentences. I'm
not. They're a tool to be used.
Yeah, of course, if someone looked at that, they might say like, "Whoa, there's a lot of commas in one sentence." But that's how you create rhythm in your writing.
Yeah, so this is a really good point, right? So as a creative writer, to me, sometimes like whenever I write, like this is a spoken dialogue, right? Or a spoken, not dialogue, a spoken like accountants of events, right? So it being spoken, this is supposed to feel like a campfire story. And so like I'm okay writing longer run-on sentences or fragment sentences or shit like that if it makes you feel like someone's telling you this story, right? Like, but if you look at like The Bitter Quiet, which is supposed to be a written account, there's a lot more like flourishes and stuff, but it's still like a person writing a journal almost, right?
Hmm.
Like trying to write down like their accounts of a story. And I always try to write in that way. Like I try to match my sentence structure and my flow to what the story is supposed to be. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and honestly, like besides even that, like of course, like we're gonna use run-on sentences and fragments when we're you know, writing in character in a story, right? But also like that's how you just make a sentence sound good, is having the flow and not using
The
a period, right?
cadence.
Because if we were
Yeah.
gonna write this completely grammatically correct, right, we would put a period after bones of a song, right?
Yeah.
But that like that just it just dampens the flow of the whole little
Also after
paragraph.
him, right? There would also be one after him.
The flesh line packed away, just the hints of a deceased.
Oh no,
Yeah.
it'd be a semicolon there,
I mean, you
right?
could anytime you can do a period, you could also do a semicolon, but
Yeah.
yeah, probably would be a semicolon if you wanted to do it that way. But point is, right, like you could easily have made that 2-3 sentences, but it doesn't have to be. And it sounds better this way. So
Yeah.
little nugget. Um let's get going. Let's continue. I
Oh,
didn't
thank you, Panda. Sorry, go ahead.
yeah, Panda, I agree. Um People are dumbing down their writing. Yeah, unfortunately, well, I could rant about that, but I'll save it for later. I didn't move. Didn't look for the source. I told myself it was birdsong or the wind running over something hollow. Sounded weird things in these woods. Always had. I'd heard laughter in these trees before. Mine, when I was younger. Before the camp had closed, when now it all sounded like echoes waiting for someone else to mistake as their own.
Oh, bro, you skipped right over that.
Whoa, what?
Reread that last paragraph.
I didn't move. Didn't look for the source. I told myself it was birdsong or the wind running over something hollow. Sounded weird things in these woods. Always had. I'd heard laughter in these trees before. Mine, when I was younger. Before the camp had closed, when...
Did you catch it that time?
What am I supposed to catch?
He heard his own laughter in the woods.
Okay, yeah, well, so I originally, like, did think something about that, but then I'm... I kind of mistook that for him just saying, like, I've laughed in these woods.
No, no, no. It's supposed to be like he heard his own laughter before the camp was closed when, and then an immediate dash. Because if you remember when at the very beginning of the story, so scroll back up to the very beginning of the story really quick. Oh, well, you'll not lose your place. Damn it. Okay, I'm going to scroll back up to tell you the story.
Okay.
So at the very beginning, right, he said, it was only my 5th summer at Camp Hollowvale. 1 year as a camper before it shut down, 1 year when it reopened, and 3 as staff. Right?
Uh-huh.
So at some point, he had been a camper, something happened, and then the camp closed down for some amount of time,
Mm-hmm.
and then it reopened, right? And it apparently closed down when he was younger and heard his laughter in the woods.
Yes. So I'm assuming whatever is taken hold of Drew at this point had done the same to his body at some point. That's what I'm...
To someone he knows, at the very least.
Yeah. Interesting. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. So I can see that. And, of course, like grammatically and semantically, like that is what he said. Like I'd heard my laughter basically, but I just took that as like turn of phrase. Like, I'd heard laughter, mine.
Yeah.
Right. But no, I can see
Would it
that.
be better if I put a period there? Would it have been better if I put a hard period? I had heard laughter in these trees before, period. Mine, when I was younger, before the camp had closed, when.
I think that would do it. I think like otherwise, like potentially doing like I'd heard my own laughter, or I'd heard my voice laughing or something. I don't know. Or like something that distances
So, do
it.
you think I should extend it? Yeah, I can see what you're saying. I do not know the Navajo word for Skinwalker Republic. Do you, Connor?
I don't.
That's an interesting question.
Is
All
it a
right.
Wendigo?
Okay. You can dive back in wherever you wanted to. I just like you blitz back there, and that's one of those sentences where I was like, I wanted this line to have a lot of impact with the reader as a like a wait, what happened when he was younger?
Yeah.
Um,
Well,
so it's like okay,
what I would say though is it's possible. Like I would definitely like be interested to hear someone else's opinion, like if they've read that and immediately recognized it, because it like it always can just be the fault of the reader not paying enough attention, right? Like it might be fine the way it is, you know, um, but it's always good to see if like other people, like if like three people had the same reaction and all didn't notice, it's like, okay, yeah, I probably need to change something. But if it's only one person and then everyone else caught it, it's like, okay, that guy just didn't read closely enough, right? Um, but perchance. Um, anyway, we'll continue with now it all sounded. Now it all sounded like echoes waiting for someone else to mistake as their own. I let it pass, said nothing, just kept walking. Back at camp, the kids scattered to wash up for lunch. I walked the perimeter one more time, my clipboard tucked under one arm like a totem that might ground me in the real world. Then I sat down in the admin cabin and typed up a basic instant log. Camper Ellison D, briefly unaccounted for during group activity. Located shortly after and returned with no complaint or injury. Claimed to be in the area the entire time while 3 counselors could not locate them. Involved staff: Avery T, Lawrence R, Fields J. No further detail. No mention of how he had acted differently. I especially didn't mention how the woods had felt. Later, just before lights out, I did my usual rounds. The boys' cabin was already half dark, only a few flashlights still on with the clamoring of teenage boys talking about their plans to ask so-and-so to the end-of-camp dance. Mike was telling someone across the bunk about how he totally cleared the log on his first try, even if his first try was after 3 pre-tries. Nate was pretending to read some paperback novel, but was obviously watching over everyone like a hawk. Drew was sitting on his bunk, notebook in his lap, staring at a page like he'd forgotten what he was supposed to write.
everyone good?
I asked. A few nods, a grunt, the rustle of covers pulling up. I stepped in and crouched beside Drew's bunk, dropping my voice.
You okay?
He looked up slow, blinking, like it took effort to shift focus away from the blank page he was staring at.
I'm good.
He said, or tried to. The first word landed fine. The second's caught.
I'm fine good.
He laughed softly, like he just tripped on a step and was embarrassed to admit it.
Sorry, just tired.
I nodded. Maybe he was. Maybe that was all. I said goodnight and backed out. But as I walked toward the counselor cabin, I could hear his voice again, the way he stumbled on his words. And then I could hear mine, too, repeating the story I'd been told around the fire just a few nights ago.
First, you stumble on your words.
I didn't finish the line. Refused to think about it anymore. Like that could change what I suspected. I just kept walking. Back to my cabin. Back to silence. Back to a story that hadn't ended. Only paused to catch its breath. Oof. Okay. So this is interesting because I think this is a kind of like an area I write towards frequently, where a character knows that something is wrong and there possibly is action to take if they just accept that something is wrong, but they don't want to accept that something is wrong, so they choose to ignore it. And I feel like that's what he's doing right now, which is a very real reaction. Because if he went and, I mean, I don't know what the appropriate action is when one of your campers has been, I don't know, possessed, taken over, or is having someone like a skinwalker impersonate them. I don't know. I don't know what the appropriate response is. But if you were to start taking that appropriate response, it would be admitting that something was going on. And once you admit that something is going on, you have to accept that, like, this is happening, right? So that's a really interesting situation. It's very real. It's a very real reaction. My question is, like, what happens next?
So, the structure of book one of the Camp Hollowvale Tales. Hold on. You caught me putting food in my mouth. So the first book of the Camp Hollowvale Tales is going to be in 4 parts. And I'll tell you what the first 3 parts are. I'm not going to tell you what part 4 is. But part 1 is Jonah Field's account of the 10 days. Mm-hmm. The second part is going to be from Drew's. And the third part is going to be from Nate's.
Interesting.
Or sorry, no, I flipped that. From Nate's and then Drew's. I'm sorry. There's 5 parts. There's Jonah's, Nate's, Kennedy's, Drew's, and then a 5th part. And the thing is, I'm telling all 10 days from Jonah's point of view, all 10 parts from Nate's point of view, all 10 points from Kennedy's point of view, and then all 10 points from Jonah's point, or from Drew's point of view. And then the last part is not going to be the whole 10 days again, but you're going to get the same 10 days looped, but from different perspectives each time.
Interesting. Okay.
So, like, Jonah being the first part is going to be a drastically different story than Nate's 10 days.
Yeah.
But it's still the same 10 days. So there's going to be parts where you could be like, oh, like day 1, this is where Jonah came and checked on them at the table. Mm-hmm. So you had the same anchor points.
Yeah. I'd be interested, especially to see Drew's account of that situation. What exactly, if you can say, what has happened to Drew? What's going on?
I will say that the answer is within the campfire story.
Okay. Well, yeah. I could.
If you go back and reread the campfire story, like I dropped it right there at the end. Like, he's already suffering from the first part of the story.
Yeah. No, I guess I want to know.
I can tell you after stream if you like.
I want to know what's going to happen next, but I guess that's something that we'll figure out at some point.
So like I said, there's 10 days in each person's story, and you will know what's happened, at least as far as Jonah knows, by day 10.
Are we ever going to go past those 10 days once we've heard everyone's story?
Yes. So that's book 1 of the Camp Hollowvale Tales. There's 3 books in that series, and they all follow Nate, Drew, and Kennedy.
How many books are you working on?
Like working on actively? 1.
Or like how many do you have planned?
I have book 1 of the Camp Hollowvale stories plotted out. I have book 1 of the disclosure, or from the Mueller family dramas planned out. I have book 2 of the of the Cavergang stories planned out. And when I say planned out, that means I have all the plot points mapped out. I just have to fill in the bones in between those plot points.
Yeah.
Right? It doesn't mean I have like chapter guidelines. It just means I know the plot from like I know every major plot beat from beginning to end.
Mm-hmm. You know, this is a question that should have came up earlier. What is your process when you start writing a book? Like as far as outlining, how detailed is your outline? How do you go from outline to?
So I'm sure you've read On Writing by Stephen King, right? Yeah. I'm sure that was so you know how he like refers to gardeners and architects?
Yeah.
I'm a gardener with a very detailed like land plot. Like my garden is very planned, like very mapped out, but I'm still a gardener, right? I still allow the story to like grow and like interweave and stuff. Like I have all the like planned parts there, but like I don't force things. And like sometimes you have to like sometimes your tomatoes fucking grow over into your beans and then you have to replant your beans somewhere else, and I've had to do that, especially with like the bitter question. Okay. But typically if I sit down and start on a novel, I have the entire novel planned out. Like as far as like the plot beats that I want to hit on each part of the book. Okay. So for instance, The Bitter Arts, which is book 3 of the Cavergang stories, I already know how many parts are going to be in that, and I know what each part's like not theme, but like I guess theme, like what each part's theme is going to be. I don't have the story plotted out, but I do have the theme for each of those parts. Whereas for The Bitter Remains, book 2, I have every chapter plotted out, and I might have to shift those chapters and extend those chapters, but I have all the chapters plotted out already. I just need to write them.
Mm-hmm. So roughly, like when you have it plotted out, when you have a book plotted out, how many words is that document before you start actually writing the book?
I can give you a exact amount. Hold on. So
because that'll give us a pretty good idea of how detailed your plot points are.
So the Bitter Remains chapter, or no, that's the character Bible. Hold on. Hold on a second. Line. Sorry, I'm looking through my Google Docs. There we go. TBR. I abbreviated. Sorry, TBR. So the TBR chapter drafting outline document is word count. What? Oh, it won't tell me for the whole document. It'll only tell me for each section. Hold on. I wonder, is there a way for me to get the... All right. So it's 429 words per chapter, and there are 45 plus 45, so 51 times 500. So
so like what, 25,000?
No. 51 times...
Oh, wait.
Surely 10,500 words. Okay. But a lot of that is formatting. Like it's very specifically formatted. I will share, like, you've read the Words from a Ghost chapter for where is there. So this is the chapter outline for Words from a Ghost.
Let's see. Wow, interesting. Okay. And is this like a method that you came up like completely on your own, or like did you read?
Yeah. So this is something that I kind of like, hey, like I sat down one afternoon and I wrote out like, okay, I like, okay, so let's start at the top, right? So time frame, when does it take place? Location, what's the primary locations that I need the story to go from point A, point B, point C? Like, where do I need them to start? Where do I need them to end, right? The beat outlines are like, what story points, like plot points, do I want to hit in this chapter specifically? Like before I write this, I will have the story plot beats written out, right? And
Yeah.
then I will break those out into chapters. Like, oh, these parts probably go together. I'll stick those in this chapter together. And then I'll expand them once I actually go into the chapter details. Continue continuity anchors are to make sure, like, hey, this is because this is a living document that I update as I go from like chapter to chapter, right? So continuity answers like the next chapter must open with uh Will being at this place or Alicia being at this
Yeah.
place. So that gives me a set like this is where the story needs to be. Um Character intent and arcs is like, hey, what's the character's goals? How like what is their like point A to point B evolution and what is their like what do they want? What do they get?
Oof,
Makes sense?
man, yeah. Yeah, that's very detailed. It's all like
Yeah.
it's the kind of detail that I wish I had because for
Dude, you can
me,
use this like, bro, I'm gonna be honest with you. Use this outline and see how it works for you. Like I can literally give you a blank slate from like I don't know, have I done chapter? Yeah, so here's a I can send you this. This is what it looks like pre-filled out, right? So this is chapter 43. You can literally take this and work with it. Here. And like copy paste it and do whatever you need to with it.
I appreciate that, man. That would
Yeah, no
be
problem.
super helpful. Yeah, my problem is I'm a very I would say let's be humble, but I feel like I'm pretty solid when it comes to prose and telling the story that I have
Mhm.
in my head. And that works pretty well for a short story. But when it comes to
Mhm.
working on a large project with a
Like a novel
huge
length.
world, a novel length work, I
Mhm.
the thing I don't enjoy planning. I enjoy writing, right? Like you say you're a world
Yeah,
builder and characters are
I am.
like secondary. I'm the opposite. I don't give a fuck about world building. I care about the characters and I hate world building.
Yeah.
That's the part I don't like doing it. I would rather
Yeah,
just
and
like
that's part of that like not wanting to do that character building. I can tell you right now that if you like you don't hate world building. You hate the chore of getting that part figured out. And I can understand that. I get that. But like you still have your imagination. You still have all this like stuff you want to put together, and that is world building. World building is just getting that from your inside and structured on the outside, right?
yeah,
So
it's just my
don't
problem.
say you hate world building. Just say like, yeah, I struggle with the organization of my world building, you know? It's
Yeah.
different.
Well, for me, I just wish like when I think like when I want to go write because I write about 1,000 words every day and I'm pretty consistent with that. Like I don't really skip days. Um I just want to go sit down and start writing the story. I don't want to sit and think about
You like the
okay,
vomit phase.
yeah, I like just writing it out. I'll make little notes like, oh, I want this to happen at this point.
Mhm.
Whatever, right? Like and it depends on the story, right? Like sometimes I don't need any notes.
Yeah.
Sometimes sometimes I don't need any notes. Sometimes I have like somewhat of an outline, but
Mhm.
I'm never like sitting out. I'm never setting out like ready to outline. And I'm like, okay, I'm gonna outline the events of this. I'm gonna think about the world. I'm gonna uh I'm gonna like a character Bible is something I would never do. I mean, not saying I would never. It's something that like right
Well,
now I've
character
never.
Bibles. So to clarify, character Bible for me is just so I can keep track of information, so I don't contradict myself later on. Like that's something I fill out afterwards. Character Bible is like so the character Bible for Bitter Remains is just like facts from the bitter question, so I
Uh,
don't contradict myself while writing the characters later.
Okay.
Yeah. Like last names or birthdays or things like that. It's just things like, hey, what have I said in the past so I don't fuck up and contradict myself in the future?
Mhm. Yeah, I guess my thing is like I rarely write anything longer than 15,000 words, right?
It's a different skill set. It's a
Yeah.
different skill set. Like it's, and that's, there's nothing wrong. Like we need short story writers, just like we need novelists. And like, so having the ability to like take short stories and make them like impactful and make like the reader care about, like I'm not a short story writer, right? So you'll notice across all these short stories of mine that you've read, they're all essentially like the openings to novels,
Hmm.
right? Essentially is what they are. And like I can't help myself.
Yeah, so
So
your
like,
stories I've noticed, like even outside of even before I had even read your novel, uh the short stories I had read, it's very much like giving us an entire world rather than just telling us a story. Um which is why I keep saying I think whenever I read your work, I'm always going back to that like 4D phrase. And you are giving the illusion of 4D, but it's not always just an illusion, right? Like there actually is a whole world because you're giving us that whole world. Um, and I'm like very much like the opposite. I'm like I want to write this. I want to write this sequence of events that happens, and then I want to put
yeah.
this away and never think about these characters again, and then start on like a new set of characters, and then like I try to write a short story every week, right? And I've never
Mhm.
once used the same like characters in um, more than one work, right?
Well,
Uh,
you're still young. Give it time.
I will say like the story I'm working on right now, or sorry, the story I just finished, about a week ago. That one, as I've reread it and been editing it, because I submit for workshop at my MFA
Mhm.
program next week. So I have a room full of writers and professors are going to read it and tell me everything that sucks about it. Um, for and I have my own like workshop day, so it's 2 hours and 40 minutes where they're just talking about my story for the entire time and everything
Oh,
that
that sounds
sucked.
amazing to me.
It's good, it's fun, and it's very helpful, but it can be very it can be it can be disheartening, and it can also be very nitpicky because no matter how good your story is, like I promise I could grab a I don't know who's I could grab a Raymond Carver story, right? If they
Mhm.
didn't know it was from Raymond Carver, they would say this part, like this needs to change, this needs to change. Like they would pick it apart, right?
Yeah, and
They
then they find out who it is. They're like, "Oh, well, I was wrong. They were very intentional with this part, or
yeah.
whatever."
So it's very much like they're there to tell you everything sucks. Like it's never gonna be like this was good, right? Like it's never
Mhm.
like this was good. Um but but what's great about workshop is you get 500 different things that they say suck, and you're not gonna change every single thing that people recommend you to change. A part of being a writer is taking that feedback and deciding which parts of that feedback were bullshit and which
Yeah.
parts were actually relevant to what I'm trying to do. And so that's where it becomes helpful. It is actually like taking that feedback and thinking critically about it and deciding what you agree with and what you disagree with. Because I mean, and the thing I always say when I give people feedback is you might maybe I left 75 comments on this story. You might think
Yeah.
70 of them are useless to you.
But five of them can really
If five
help.
of them were
Yeah.
helpful, then I did a good job
A good job.
with this,
Yeah, I agree.
right? But it's just very it like the day like after your workshop day, you just feel like you
Mhm.
want to like you just feel like, well, I should just quit writing. Like I should just stop. Like it's not even worth it. I'm a terrible writer. But then you'll talk to the people who were in your workshop telling you everything. Like they don't actually say this sucked, but it feels like they're saying this sucked.
Yeah,
You'll
yeah,
talk
I
to
know, I
them,
know.
they'll talk to them the next day and they'll be like, dude, that was one of the best stories I've read this semester. It's like, what do you mean? Yesterday you spent an hour
Yeah,
telling
you
me
tore my
that.
asshole up. What are you
Yeah,
talking about?
yeah. But that's just how it is, and it's I think like every writer should get to experience that at some point, even if you don't do an MFA, like going to a critical workshop like that. Um,
I actually have the opportunity to go because I'm actually in a 25 English 2500 this semester for and that's going to be the one I like. There's two that I can sign up. One is for creative writing. One's for poetry specifically uh, as extra credit. And I was actually going to sign up for the creative writing one.
oh, that'll be fun. Yeah, I will say like undergraduate is very like my experience, and I'm sure it's different at every university.
Oh, these are so to clarify, these aren't infant. These are like outside of school.
Oh,
These
oh, oh.
are like we can go, and because we are students, they are free. But normally, if you weren't a student, you'd be paying to attend.
Okay, so this is like some outside of the
Yeah,
university, like
these are outside authority. Now, a lot of the board members on these what are they called? What are they called? What's the word I'm looking for? Writing collectives, I guess.
mhm.
Um like writing camp collectives or whatever. A lot of the board members are like professors. Like maybe there might be like one local published author, and then the rest of them are faculty members at the university, but like they are unaffiliated with the school.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so this might be a mute point, but I was gonna say that like undergraduate workshops, it's a bunch of
Mm.
people who there might be like one other decent writer in there,
Yeah,
but it's mostly like a bunch of people who thought like, oh, like creative writing is like an easy elective to take, and
yeah.
they're gonna submit stories that are complete, like you can tell they didn't try, and it's like I feel like I'm wasting my time trying to give feedback on this because you obviously don't care about it. And then when they read your story, they're gonna be either like just saying buzzwords, or they're gonna be
Yeah,
like saying, I can't think of anything wrong with it, this is like, this is perfect, this is amazing.
very
um
vapid or very like checked out, one or the
yeah,
other.
yeah, but I'm guessing if that's something that people are going out of their way to do it, then it's probably gonna be.
Yeah, like so these are the ones that I'm talking about, like these like writing workshops are ones that like have outsiders sign up for. They're like as students we can get into it for free, but that doesn't mean like we get any special treatment or anything like that. It's we're getting the same like review process as all the people who paid to be there.
That'll be good.
Um, and there was two options, and we can go to them for extra credit. We don't have to go to them. So like I'm going to the writing one, I think, but that doesn't mean anyone else in my class will be there.
Yeah, yeah. That'll be a good experience, I think. You're like you don't come from, or I'm assuming, but I think from what you've said, I can gather that you don't have a education in writing, but you're like
Um,
self-taught in a way. That's what it
yeah,
seems like to
so
me.
that's sort of true. I was a English major before I joined the Navy. And then once I joined the Navy, I got my technical background and stuff like that. And then I came back to school as a computer science major.
Interesting.
So I was an English major, but like I was in all of my core classes and shit like that.
Yeah.
I wasn't like, I wasn't taking the higher level English courses back then.
Yeah.
I've taken two English courses in this like return to college now. And
Mhm.
so like I do have like some training. It's very loose. I use
Yeah.
that. But like, yes, I would say the vast majority of my quote unquote writing training comes from self-taught like I would like on writing
Yeah.
or Patrick Rothfuss or Brandon Sanderson has these really great
The lectures.
workshops for
Yeah.
free, yeah,
Yeah.
on YouTube.
Yeah. I've watched them
Like
all.
those types of things I would do on my own, but even that pales in comparison from just throwing words on a page over and
Yeah.
over
Well,
and
that's what I
over.
was gonna say. If someone wants to be a writer, there's almost no point in getting an English degree or like going to an MFA program. Like most popular writers, not all, like there are popular writers who have MFAs, but most of them do not get an MFA, right? Most of them just
Yeah.
write. They have other jobs, like Brandon Sanderson, like just
Yep.
working those jobs where you can. I mean, he did go to
You have the
school,
time
but
to write
yeah,
on
work.
shifts and stuff. Yeah,
Yeah,
like most of the people who get like MFAs are going to be part of the academics world.
yeah,
Like you're going to go be an English teacher or an English professor. That's like the most common job you're going for, because a lot of the like paying jobs for writers don't give a fuck about a degree. They
yeah.
want to see your portfolio and see if your portfolio vibes with what they're looking for, right?
Yeah. And you can learn everything that actually matters without getting the degree. Like someone who is self-taught and actually puts in the time is going to be a better writer than someone who just went and got an MFA because they think
And
that
read all the
yeah, because they think that's what you
yeah.
do, right?
Yeah.
Now they might have a better, understanding. Maybe they'll have a better understanding of sentence structure. But like, if we're
Or
talking
the
about,
required minutes,
yeah,
like
yeah, but if we're talking about selling a book, nobody like, or we're talking about the average person picking up a book and enjoying it. Nobody gives a fuck about like if your
no.
grammar is perfect or whatever.
Also, like
Like,
also in creative writing specifically, like McCarthy, McCormick,
yeah, Cormac McCarthy, yeah,
Carthy, yeah, he said like um punctuation is for cowards or something like that.
yeah,
Like, and that to me is like it speaks to like when it comes to creative writing, it's more about like can you get the emotion. One, can you get the emotion across that you want to get across with the words? Two, can the reader understand the path that you're trying to take them down? And three, can you tell the story you're trying to tell? Right?
yeah.
Those are the three components that, as long as you can check all three of those boxes, it doesn't fucking matter how good your grammar
And
is.
it's
Right?
it's funny because those are the things that can't be taught. I'm not saying you can't
They
learn
can't.
them,
Yeah.
but no one can teach them to you. It's something that you have to learn from
Yeah, like that's like
experience.
your teachers are going to run you through drills to try to drill those things into you, but it's up to you to learn them and it's up to you to take those on board. Because like if you have an English teacher who's checked the fuck out, who's there because they have tenure and they're fucking tired of teaching fucking engineer grads fucking basic English over and over and over because that's what they've been stuck doing for fucking 20 years, then they're not going to teach you anything. They're going to give you the workbook packlet and they're going to tell you, "Hey, this is your assignments," and then they're going to hand it off to their teacher assistant to grade. The TA's going to grade the papers and you're not going to get anything from that,
Yeah, yeah,
right? But if you have a teacher like a university professor who cares, they're going to run you through those like drills and those like because that's what it is. It's drilling. Like
yeah.
it gets you into the thing of like if you take this to heart and you use this to practice, you can develop the skills you need to be a good writer down the road.
Yeah. And it really is. It's all about like creating a story that people care about, and that comes through, like you said, experience and like doing
Yeah.
those drills and not listening to a lecture. Like, yeah, listening to those Brandon Sanderson lectures are like good. Like that's something that like
Yeah,
probably
he has
does.
some cool information. Yeah.
Yeah, but that's not gonna single-handedly get you like it's
Oh no.
doing
No, no,
nothing
no.
for you unless you're actually getting the words down,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
um
Hey, do you still want to read this bitter disclosure? I'm still down. I'm not tired or anything. I want to make sure you're good.
yeah, let's go ahead and get through it
Okay,
because
cool.
I can't be up that late. I mean I can, but I need to
Okay.
I have some stuff I need to do in the morning.
Sorry,
So
we'll talk more offline, but I did
yeah,
want to.
we have a lot to say. I think we both have a lot to say about writing, and which is good. But I think people want to hear the bitter disclosure.
Yeah. Hey, let's read the first three paragraphs, and then I want to pause for just a second, though.
Cool. All right. This is called the bitter disclosure. Even 40 stories above the city, the evening air felt heavy with unsaid things. The rooftop terrace of the luxury hotel was draped in fairy lights and the low murmur of familial voices. Long tables were covered in white linens. Crystal glasses caught the glow of candles that flickered like distant stars. I stood slightly apart from the cluster of cousins and aunts, fingering the rim of my empty soda glass. At 31, I thought I had gotten comfortable with myself, but tonight I felt strangely set apart and exposed. My younger sister, Jenna, in the process of getting her doctorate for business psychology, sidled up beside me with a gentle smile. Nothing too strong in that.
Nope. Connor, it's the first quote.
I was too focused on getting through the first 3 paragraphs. I was like, my younger sister, Jenna, in the process of getting her doctorate for business psychology, sidled up beside me with a gentle smile.
Nothing too strong in that glass, right?
She asked softly, tone teasing but eyes sharp with reproach.
Just a Jack and Coke. Hold the Jack.
I toasted the glass toward her and took a small drink. I shrugged and attempted to laugh, a familiar guilt twisting in my chest.
All right, so what's your initial vibe check on this?
I don't know. I feel our main character is depressed.
Okay.
I feel like he's an outcast in the family. I feel like he's lonely, outcast, depressed, recovering alcoholic, obviously.
Yeah. Okay.
And he's
drinking straight rum.
He's not. He's not.
He's not. It's a Jack and Coke.
Hold the Jack.
Yeah. Hold the Jack. Yeah.
He's sober.
All right. Cool. I just wanted to see what your initial gut feeling for the protagonist was. So he feels depressed. He feels set apart from the family, right?
Yeah. That's my thoughts.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. I just wanted to make sure.
Tonight marked 1 year sober to the day. She nodded, visibly pleased, but something still hovered behind her eyes, unspoken. She drifted back to mingle with the estranged relatives gathered for our semi-annual family reunion, leaving behind a whisper of worry that stayed stubbornly in place beside me. Music played softly from corner speakers while older couples swayed gently to some muted love song. Laughter and clinking glasses briefly softened any underlying tensions. I sipped my soda and scanned the terrace, enjoying the warm night breeze. Mid-sip, my gaze snagged on a tall figure standing isolated on the far side of the terrace, a stranger among my kin. Somehow, he looked familiar, but his features seemed ever so slightly warped. He was observing my family from the shadows, eyes catching the flickering glow of the fire pit in a way that gave them an unsettling, predatory shine. A wolf lingering at the fringes of an oblivious flock, calmly selecting his prey. His head was tilted ever so slightly. A manic half-grin lifted the corner of his mouth. He leaned his shoulders forward in a controlled way that held spring-tight tension. He looked so familiar, yet alien to me. A fragment lifted straight from an old nightmare. I blinked rapidly to try and adjust my sight to see him better. And just like that, he vanished. Suddenly, the music stopped with a high-pitched electric buzz, and the man was standing on the small stage, stepping forward to its center as he clapped his hands like an eager host.
"May I have your attention, please?"
he called out, his calm voice rippling through a sudden deathly silence. The way he said please carried a quiet yet undeniable command, as if defying him would have unimaginable consequences.
"We have never met,"
he continued,
"but my name is Cerritos."
The name felt feminine in a way I couldn't quite place. More than that, though. It felt old and yet new, a name that had once been something else entirely. but I decayed into a form alien to our shared reality.
What do you want? Who invited this guy?
My Uncle Gregor called out sharply. Uncle Gregor was the current CEO of the family business, and his voice held the edge of a man who was used to getting what he wanted. He had always been a domineering man, being the strongest voice in any room, and he answered to only one person in the entire world. His mother and our ancient matriarch, Grammy Renee. After my great-grandfather Hans had immigrated to America, he raised his only child to become the shrewdest businesswoman to ever play the corporate game. She became an industrial powerhouse and grew the tiny family business into the monolithic corporation it was now. She was also the guardian of our family's unity. No marriage occurred without her explicit blessing. Even at 95, she sat in her wheelchair off to the side, glaring with open hostility toward the stranger who dared interrupt her family's private gathering.
Wonderful question, Greggy.
Cerritos replied, but now his voice was that of a woman in her early 20s, clear as a bell and impossibly sensual in its familiarity. The indignation drained rapidly from my uncle's face, leaving behind a confused, almost fearful expression I had never seen him wear before. Cerritos' face betrayed no hint of amusement, as he continued in his original voice, utterly composed and cold.
I'm here to help all those gathered here in a way they do not yet realize they need.
Oh, I love this. This is like, I like, man, I'm almost too, I'm too something to explain what I mean. But I love like family event, some guy shows up and they are clearly showing that they believe they're in control amongst a group of people that are like, dude, there's 30 of us. What, like, but he's so confident.
CEOs of a very prolific, powerful company.
But
and this guy rolls up and be like, nah, I'm the one in control here.
Yeah, it gives this like what's the word I'm looking for? It's just it's like there's nothing they can do. This feeling that we know and they don't know it yet, but they're gonna see soon. It's inevitable. Yeah. All right. He's gonna help them. What does he mean by that? That could be open for interpretation. All those gathered shared concerned glances, a dull roar of whispered confusion sweeping through the crowd.
This family of yours harbors so many secrets, you see,
the man said, stepping to the edge of the stage.
Something I simply cannot abide. Tonight, we shall air out some of these secrets and let them really breathe.
Oh my god, dude. It's kind of reminded me of Tommy Taffy a little bit. Obviously in a very different way, but just like the entity itself, it's like...
I was actually listening to that yesterday. I re-listened to the Creepcast episode on Tommy Taffy yesterday.
Dude,
that's fucking hilarious.
I really love Tommy Taffy, just out of pure nostalgia, because I read it in high school. In high school, I spent so much of my time on my phone in the back of class with my head down, reading no sleep stories. And I remember Tommy Taffy was one that I read, and I was like, holy shit, where can I read something this fucking dark and demented? Like, I had never read something up to that point that was so, like, fucked up.
Twisted,
And I was like, where can I get more of this? And it was so hard it's rare to find something. Not that this is that.
It's that scratch.
Yeah, not that this is dark like that, but it just... well, maybe it will be.
Let's read.
We haven't got to it yet, at least. All right. I let out a deep exhale. I hadn't realized I had been holding my breath, and somehow the command of the stranger had forced me out of my daze. I took a sip from my glass to clear my throat, wishing that it burned even just a little on its way down.
I will give you all the truth, and then allow the room 5 minutes so that someone may own up to it. If even one of you can confess to your secret, I will bid you all farewell, and you will never have to see me again. If no one does, I will out them myself, and then we shall continue.
Oh my god, dude, you can't see, but I'm cheesing right now. I'm so happy. Like this is I'm telling you, it's really hard for me to focus when I'm reading out loud, but this one has me I'm on the edge of my seat. Like I love this scenario. And it was set up so quickly that like no matter like I'm gonna be locked in the rest of the story. So I really love this. It could definitely be it would be a good horror movie. At least so
No,
far.
yeah, absolutely. So, have you seen the Fall of the House of Usher on Netflix?
No, I haven't.
Damn, that's the best comparison because like there's a supernatural element that occurs towards like the very, very, very end of that series, and part of what whenever I was writing this is like, what if instead of being at the end, the supernatural event was the very fucking beginning and kicked it off from like the dead beginning. And that's where I wrote this. This is a super powerful mega corporation family that is so used to not having repercussions to their actions. And now all of a sudden, someone's coming shoving all their dirty laundry in their face.
It's so nice that just like not only is there the implication of some supernatural entity and what's he gonna do if they don't listen, and what's he gonna do to them, right? But also just the small gossip element, the small like where we want the tea, like what is the fucking secret, and we know he's about to tell us. I like to call those gas stations, right? So it's not the main point that you're taking us to, but it's something in the middle that's going to keep us
along the way
entertained and keep us, it's going to give us, because if you wait too long for a gas station, we're going to run out of fuel and we're going to stop reading. Or if we have to keep reading, we're not going to be focused anymore. Right.
Yeah.
So like that one, I'm on F right now. I'm full.
I bought you in already. Yeah.
Yeah. This is good. I really like this. Okay. Uncle Gregor had obviously had enough. As he climbed 3 steps onto the stage and went to grab Cerritos' elbow, the man cast a stern look onto my uncle and said words in a language I couldn't understand. Uncle Gregor immediately lost consciousness and crumpled to the floor in a heap, head bouncing off the hardwood floor with a thud. The room broke into a panic. The sound of doors being forced against some invisible locks rang out loudly with harsh words. I stood unmoving, staring at the unblinking smile on Cerritos' face. No one dared to charge him now. Whatever he had done to Uncle Gregor was enough to dissuade others. I would have missed what happened next if I hadn't been watching the interloper so closely. He turned his smile down to my uncle and spoke a whisper. The burly man suddenly flailed his limbs and scrambled off the stage in a whirlwind of limbs and loud cursing. The back of his head leaked a small line of crimson under his white sports jacket, but otherwise he seemed completely unharmed. I'm reading really fast, but I'm trying to.
Dude, I have you hooked. I have you fucking hook, line, sinker.
Yeah. His sudden recovery seemed to be enough to pull everyone out of their hysterics, and the room took on an eerie quiet. It was Cerritos that broke the silence.
First truth. One of you is a kleptomaniac.
He announced in an even pitch.
They steal from stores when they obviously need not do such things. They relish in the thrill and will often masturbate once they get home. You have 5 minutes to confess, thief.
The vulgar tidbit was offered as plainly as the acquisition. No edge of mockery, but condemnation nonetheless. Eyes swung about the room in confusion. Who would ever do such things? Who would be willing to own up to such facts in front of their extended family? Oh my god, imagine being this person. Like, do you own up? I don't think so, but I don't know. The hushed conversations were punctuated by more people trying to seal doors, but no one spoke up. I remained at my spot, watching my lineage packing over something that, while embarrassing, was trivial. Did they not believe this supernatural being would continue to share our deepest secrets? No one fessed up to the crime, and a sturdy laugh from Cerritos marked the 5-minute mark. Very... Oh, fuck. Sorry.
Very well. We shall continue. Amelia, would you like to explain yourself now, or shall I move on to the next truth?
Oh my god, it's the 50-year-old woman. She steals and masturbates? Okay. All right. The 50-year-old woman gasped at the man's words. She stammered around her words and threw looks around at her husband and children gathered around her. Sure.
Sure, you can't. Why would I would never.
The moment she denied it, the moment she lied, she collapsed to the floor, just as Uncle Gregor had. Before pandemonium could break out this time, Certas spoke with a booming anger that rattled me to my bones. Augustus?
I muted my mic.
Oh.
Okay. So whenever I tilted my mic down. All right, give me another read-in.
Yeah. Before pandemonium could break out this time, Certas spoke with a booming anger that rattled me to my bones.
I will suffer no falsehoods before me.
And as before, Aunt Amelia regained consciousness and thrashed about in a moment of confusion. Her husband hoisted her to her feet, but already the eyes of everyone were already glued to Certas. The anger that had radiated from the being evaporated and left it with a simple, pleasant smile.
There will be no further warnings. Second truth. One of you gains their accolades without merit. They have slept with many on their way to their current position and would have failed many times already. Are you not as virtuous as you pretend to be?
He said. An unnatural grin split his lips as he chuckled in a manic, jovial way.
You have 5 minutes to confess, poser.
He's also like simultaneously with Tommy Taffy. He's also reminding me of Hisoka from Hunter x Hunter. If you're aware of that
Hisoka
character.
was Hisoka was the one I was going for. Legitimately, Hisoka was like the perfect.
Yeah,
nailed it.
This is
Hole
really
in one.
doing it for me. Wow. Like, yeah. Okay. The 5 minutes passed in a terse hush. My family shared private accusations in small clumps, trying to find who could be the culprit. He paused, then looked at Jenna.
Jenna, you've been sleeping with your doctoral advisor, and before her, you spent the night in 2 other professors' beds. You prey on the emotionally weak and enjoy manipulating them. And that is the only reason you have pursued the path you walk now.
Oh my god. I'm gasping like it's my family every time a secret's revealed.
Oh shit, spill the tea, sister. Oh my god.
Going on. A chorus of gasps rang out. My dear sister went as pale as paper, the blood draining from her face. Her shoulders slumped and she looked on the verge of passing out. Even my father, seated nearby, tightened his jaw as if to stand. Her fiancé, already approved by Grammy Renee, jumped to his feet, outraged, pointing at Certas.
You take that back.
Jenna's voice trembled.
No, Ferris, it's true.
She whispered. Her fiancé clenched his fist, stepping forward to defend her.
You don't have to lie for this mother.
He started, but the stranger raised a hand and all the words fled him. His mouth moved, but no words would escape his lips.
If she lied, I would have struck her down. She has confessed, and that is enough. Who are you?
My father asked, just above a whisper. He had finally stood from his position, slender frame stepping around his table to leave my mother behind, whereas his older brother Gregor was loud and bullish in his command. My father's soft voice carried the type of weight that made people truly afraid to displease. He wasn't the CEO of the company, never wanted that position, but instead he was just a member of the board. If anyone ever doubted who really controlled the company, look at how the board voted when the brothers disagreed.
My name is Certas, and I'm here to reveal the truth. But who are you to come before my family and expose our secrets?
His tone was edging dangerously close to threatening, and I had to stop myself from grabbing his shoulder and pulling him back to his seat.
Ah,
Oh, God, Zeratas said with a wry grin and a tilt of his head.
who indeed? All in due time, Andrew. All in due time.
That sounded exactly like Hisoka. Oh man, the use of my father's name felt alien and unreal, despite all the displays of surreal power. Calling my father anything other than Mr. Mueller was what really made me feel out of my element. This simple display of power was something I could not comprehend. The stranger chuckled again, clear and deliberate, and then he spoke.
The truth. One of you has betrayed sacred vows and beds a subordinate many times a week. 3 pregnancies have ended prematurely, and even now a seed has taken root and grows. And yet you refuse to stop. You have 5 minutes to confess, adulterer.
Surely you confess now, right? You've seen what happens. Whereas the previous way had passed in tense quiet, now people were angrily accusing one another of sleeping with chauffeurs or personal trainers. I might have been the only one that was completely ignored in the angry slinging of words. 5 minutes went by and no one had spoken up. This time, there was no laugh to announce the passing of the time. This time, there was only a long sigh.
Gregor, you have been carrying on an affair with your secretary for more than 9 years. You have paid for her lifestyle and her abortions and swore to her that you would divorce your wife many times. You swore this to her many times, but you have no intention of doing so.
The words washed over the family like a wave of Arctic water. Gregor's face drained of color as he froze in place. His wife staggered back, hands flying to her mouth. Others stared at him in disbelief. Gregor pushed away his chair angrily.
This is slander,
he shouted, voice trembling. A beam of light struck my uncle from the sky, and he was simply gone. No smoke, no gore, just gone. My aunt wailed and stumbled away from the spot her husband had been. His children screamed in disbelief, trying to find words for their grief. My mother staggered back into a chair, covering her face in horror. Others said nothing, either too shocked or unable to process what just occurred. Some began to mumble prayers to deities the Mueller brood hadn't hailed since decades before our former patriarch had left the fatherland. I simply tried to blink the dark line that stained my vision where the ray of light had erased Gregor from existence. A shadow swimming down the middle of my vision like the ghost of Gregor still haunting the gathering. I tried to steady my breathing, but dread coiled in my stomach. What greater secret could this godlike stranger expose? The stranger's gaze slid around the gathering, its twisted grin showing too many teeth. And I knew. See, like, this is what I've been thinking this whole time. Like, why is this our main character? Why are we with this character? There has to be a reason. And I feel like we're getting close. I swallowed down the taste of bile. Faces around me blurred into a haze. Fear buzzed louder than the distant traffic. The stranger's eyes had shifted to me. I could feel them on me as clearly as my own heartbeat pounding in my ears. I opened my mouth to speak, but no sound came out. In that silence, I realized with terror why he looked so familiar when I first spotted him. I pressed a hand against my chest. The incident from last summer flashed through my mind. The taste of too many whiskey sours as she told me how I wasn't a real man. He killed her, didn't he? Summer rain slicking the back road I drove on. Tears screeching angrily as I tried to swerve. A crumpled figure flung out onto the side of the street. Final thud. With a final thud. The truth that led to my sobriety.
A crumpled figure flung onto the side of the street with a final thud. Yeah, I need to correct that.
No, all good, all good. The truth that led to my sobriety. I had buried it with my family's money and resources. Yet it came back from the shadows and ruined my family's sheltered reunion. Now I know my secret will be next. I stand frozen as he walks straight toward me, each step measured. He stops right in front of me. His dark eyes meet mine. I recognize those eyes from... My breath hitches. Whatever the being Cerritos was, it had disguised itself as the man I had killed in a hit and run a year ago. The noise of the city floods back around me, drowning out everything but the hammering in my pulse. His eyes bore into mine, a recognition undeniable. The truth sinks into my chest like 1,000 poison-coated blades. There's nowhere left to hide. My secret is next. I love that. I also love that, like, our stopping point, because I think there's a certain instinct to, like, continue the story from there, but I think the choice to end it right there is perfect, because we've already seen what happens so many times that we don't need to be told again, and it actually, I think, hits harder when we just get to sit with what's coming without actually having to read it. And this story is honestly the perfect... I'm going to use the word no sleep, even though this isn't posted on no sleep. But when I think of reading like horror stories online, I just think of everything as no sleep. It's the perfect no sleep story because it, you know, in contrast to your other stories, which are just as good, but in different ways, I think those have more of a build up and a connection to the characters and this kind of slow, it's like those are like a Ferris wheel, and this is like the drop of a roller coaster. It's like we started and we didn't slow down from beginning to end, and that's like the type of story.
Yeah, so do me a favor.
Yeah.
Do me a favor, reread the first 3 paragraphs again.
Okay. Even 40 stories above the city, the evening air felt heavy with unsaid things. The rooftop terrace of the luxury hotel was draped in fairy lights and the low murmur of familial voices. Long tables were covered in white linens, crystal glasses caught the glow of candles that flickered like distant stars. I stood slightly apart from the cluster of cousins and aunts, fingering the rim of my empty soda glass. At 31, I thought I had gotten comfortable with myself, but tonight I felt strangely apart and exposed. My younger sister Jenna, in the process of getting her doctorate for business psychology, sidled up beside me with a gentle smile. Nothing too strong.
You can read that quick.
Nothing too strong in that glass, right? She asked softly, tone teasing but eyes sharp with reproach. Just a Jack and Coke. Hold the Jack. I toasted the glass toward her and took a small drink. I shrugged and attempted a laugh, a familial guilt twisting in my chest.
Now that you have read the story, what do you think of those first 3 paragraphs?
So I'm going to say that just kind of piecing things together. It's been 1 year sober, 1 year sober to the day. He said the reason he quit drinking was because he killed that guy in a hit and run. So he's already, he has a familiar guilt twisting in his chest.
Yep. Could you have guessed what, now that you've read the story, does that hit differently now that you understand what he'd done and why that familiar guilt is there?
It does, yeah. And it works twofold too, because like you could interpret that guilt as like he just like the guilt from remembering when he was an alcoholic and the guilt for like his family having to check with him if he's drinking and he feels like a burden or whatever the case may be. And it could partially be that, but now that we know the full story, we know that it's something much stronger. Or as well, right? It's either both or it's just the stronger one. But yeah, I really think this was like beautifully done. This is the type of story that I read it and it makes me want to go write, because I want to go write like a fast paced, like I want to go write like not necessarily this same type of story, but like just like a fast paced, like we start the horror from 500 words in and it doesn't stop until It doesn't stop until the last word. And it's a really like great kind of setup for giving us characterization while we're in the horror, because instead
Mhm.
of like slowly introducing us to the characters, it's like we do get like a little bit of conversation, but then we get Cerritos, and we're learning more about the characters as they're in the situation, and as everything's happening. So there's no chance to get bored or zone out because
Yeah, I don't
we're
give you
in
much
it.
breathing room.
Yeah. And so like while the other story, for example, I think is just as good, that's one that I would appreciate it a lot more if I was reading it by myself. Like off stream, like just sitting down and like really like focusing on
Yeah,
it.
tucked up in your chair, like,
Yeah.
enjoying it by yourself. Yeah.
Yeah. Whereas this one is like perfect for like, I mean, I would enjoy this one if I was by myself too, but it's one that like, it's like the difference between watching like a thriller and like a slow, I don't know, like a slow romance or something. It's like one isn't necessarily better than the other,
Yeah.
but the genre, the genre of this story is I think stronger for like a live reading, at least for me.
Yeah, no, like this is the one where I was thinking, I was like, if I were to say, like, if someone, because like I think that The Bitter Slumber is another good one for like being read and like having it narrated. This is one where like I think The Bitter Disclosure is probably my best story for like if like voice acting it out, like
Yeah.
me and you having a voice acting back and forth. And like I would love for us to be able to put this one together as like a standalone thing and have like, I don't know, like have Nat voice, Jenna,
Mm.
and then like, figure out some way to get someone older to voice the kleptomaniac that masturbates.
Yeah, I was
Speaking of
actually,
which,
yeah, go
the
ahead.
escalation of truth, I thought I did my best to really make sure that like the escalation was like, believable, where like each step of the way people would still be like not wanting to reveal, but like there was still like a clear escalation there.
Yeah. I think there was, but it was I think there was an escalation and like how extreme the fallout from each secret was. But I also think the you used the perfect first one because it was so jarring. It was like, because like the obvious thing, if you start to expose family secrets, the first thing we're gonna think of is, oh, like who's cheating on who, right? But you
Mhm.
didn't go there off the rip. You started with kleptomaniac who masturbates after, uh, which is
And
like,
it's like it's just like it's embarrassing enough that no one would admit that,
yeah, no
right?
one's admitting that. But then the other ones, it's not necessarily. I mean, it's embarrassing, but it's not embarrassing in the sense that it's a different kind of embarrassment, and there's more fallout to those, I would say.
Yeah.
But the
Those
other
are more
ones,
like life altering, like you're getting a divorce, like the kids are gonna have two Christmases,
yeah,
you know?
yeah, that those are ones like you might be like, I'd rather die than expose this secret. um
Yeah.
and the first one, maybe you feel the same way, but also we don't she doesn't know that it's gonna get out regardless. Although in the back of her head she must, because otherwise how the fuck does someone know that someone in the family is doing this, right?
Yeah, I mean, it could be like a disgruntled maid revealed a secret that they figured out or something, or
Yeah.
that's where like when you asked, how does he know that? Like I was like, that's or no, sorry, I think it was a Nat in the chat asked like, how does he know that? I
Yeah.
was like, that's the question, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. I, I I would say like this is one I was thinking the same thing. Like I was actually going to say it before you said it. This is one where I almost would like to like do a rereading of this, like
Like
with
get a clear
no,
read of it.
yeah, with no talking in the middle, and just like have that be posted as like its own video or something, because I think this
I'd be
is
down. Anytime you want me to read it, I'll do Ceratops since you seem to like my
that
Ceratops.
voice was amazing. I was like, dude, if you go back and watch my rebroadcast, you're gonna see me like I look at the camera and like open my I like my hands are on my head. It's this is one of the best, this is genuinely like one of the best horror stories I've ever read. I'm a big fan of this one. I'm like, it's so sad when I like go through and it, you know, and if it doesn't bother you,
Yeah.
then it's not that sad. But it's so sad when I read that and then I scroll down and it's 2 upvotes. No one's
Yeah, it's me and
ever,
you. It's
yeah,
literally me and you.
no one's ever read it before. So I'm sure someone's read it, but like,
No. So this is a repost of it. So I reposted it on the Bitterverse with some edits. So going forward, if something is read on the Bitterverse subreddit, that is gospel. No matter where else it's been posted, if it's on the Bitterverse, it's canon. Right? So this story will be edited because spoiler, Gregor doesn't die in the when this is going to be novelized. Gregor doesn't die. Someone else dies. And then Gregor has to fess up because I need Gregor alive for what I want to do with the rest of the story.
I'm curious,
right?
how this story, the one we just read, how does this relate to the larger plot?
So there are criteria for things to be connected to the Bitterverse. First and foremost, there's not like a single pantheon, but there is a world building like all right. So to clarify, copy and paste Ceratos into Google and see what you can find.
Okay. Oh, that's right.
Yeah, I say copy and paste because you need the E with the line over it.
I just realized that. Where are you, Ceratos? Sucks. I can't.
Because if I did my job, yeah.
Okay, here. I got it.
It's like the 4th line or something.
Yeah.
But if you copy and paste it, Google should, fingers crossed, should offer a "Did you mean this?"
It didn't give me a "Did you mean this?" but it took me to the Latin lexicon. Late arrival, slowness, tardiness.
Close.
But then if I go under that Wiktionary, I think this is gonna be what you were going for. Accusative, feminine, plural of Ceratus.
Close. So we're very, very close. Better yet, can you go over to the Bitter Youth? Do you mind jumping over to the Bitter Youth on stream? Yeah. Because the Bitter Youth, if you look at the name for the antagonistic force, I'm not going to say it's the antagonist, but the antagonistic force of this story, right? It's towards the bottom. It's like where she says her name multiple times is probably the easiest place to find it.
It took me freaking 20 fucking hours to get to the Bitter Youth.
That's okay.
Okay, where am I going?
Towards the bottom. If you want, I can just copy and paste it to. It's towards the bottom. About halfway, actually.
Okay.
Okay. So, do you know who the Morrigan is?
Not really.
So, the Morrigan is a Scottish / Celtic deity. Also shows up in Arthurian legend as well. But the Morrigan was essentially, her name roughly translates to either the Great Queen or the Wicked Queen. And she is like portrayed with ravens. She's often portrayed as a beautiful redheaded woman, or as 3 sisters, the maiden, the mother, and the crone. She is like, a lot of times has to do with like not death, but the journey to death. Like for like your journey through life is kind of like attributed to her, but not like the act of living, like specifically the march towards death.
Interesting.
Right?
Yeah.
So the Morgaha is her decayed from the Morrigan. right? The Morrigan is the original. Moraga hurt is the new, like what the Morrigan has turned into, right? Ceratops is the decayed version of the Roman god of truth.
Okay.
Um,
The Roman god of truth. Okay. That makes a lot of sense.
well, yeah, like if you like, we'll talk off stream about this because it's late and I'm sure you're tired. And like anytime you want to talk about this, I'll hop on call and talk to you for fucking hours about it. But essentially, all of the like, so you have gods turn into paled crowns, and then like mythical monsters or spirits or heroes turn into waning remnants, and they're like two different levels of power. But like Ceratops or the Moraga or like that level of thing is a paled crown. That is a god essentially, right? But the thing talked about in the bitter song or in the bitter question, those are waning remnants. They don't have that godly power. They are still mythical. They are still powerful, but they're not gods, right? So that's one of the things that like the bitter verse is like they all contain this like decayed myth. Like they were once real myths, and because of like not being praised anymore, not getting the attention that they used to, they turned into these other things.
Interesting. Yeah. Wow. I love how there's so much like depth to everything. Like you're not just
World
kind
Builder
of,
first.
yeah, you're not just kind of like throwing stuff out there. It's all very like, and you can tell by reading. But it becomes even more obvious when you talk to you about it that it's all very carefully thought out and planned, and it's just enough. It's just enough friendly with reality that it becomes very real. And I think that's awesome. um all right, I think it's about time for me to get ready for
Yeah, we got
bed.
caught, dude.
Yeah.
It's getting late.
Yeah. But dude, this was so much fun. It
Absolutely.
was
Yeah.
awesome to hear so much about your process and the book, and to read these awesome stories. That last one
Yeah,
was
man.
definitely the highlight of the of
I thought you were gonna enjoy it. That's the reason I wanted you to read the bitter song first. Because like the song I like bitter song I'm very proud of. And I think I fucking nailed like the campfire feel,
yeah.
like campfire ghost stories. That because that was the vibe I was going for. But the bitter disclosure, I was like, this is the one where it's like big, hard hitting, like moments that like I knew you were gonna vibe with.
Yeah. Yeah, I think anyone who's like in the horror space would really love that story. Um it would do well in a lot of different venues. All right, man. Let's go ahead and call it. But again, like thanks for your
Yeah,
time, and it was a lot of
yeah,
fun.
absolutely.
We should do it again
And if
sometime.
you Yeah, if you want to talk tomorrow at some point, just shoot me a message when you're available.
Cool. All right, man. I'll talk to you later.
All right. Later, broski.
Have a good one. All right, guys, that's the end of the stream. Again, shout out Augustus. Thank you so much to him for his time. I highly recommend checking out his recent book, The Bitter Question. Top tier writing, as seen in the story we just read and the other stories by him. It's a great stream. I appreciate everyone who stuck around the whole time. We're looking at almost 4 hours of being live, but it honestly flew by. It was so much fun. Yeah, hope everyone has a good rest of your night. I'm gonna get this stream edited and uploaded as a YouTube, Apple Podcast, and Spotify VOD tomorrow. So be ready to check that out. Join my Discord with !Discord in the chat if you want me to read any of your stories on stream, or perhaps even have you on to talk about your work in the future. And yeah, hope everyone has a good rest of your night. I'll be live on Tuesday for more reading some stories, and I'll see you guys then.